It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, the son of Watergate, chilling like a villain, Barack Hussein Obama is melting down, as I said, we were seeing last week. And yes, he's a globalist puppet, but all the hopes and dreams to sell tyranny and to sell war and torture and secret spying and political persecution as trendy is now falling on its face. When you see the establishment turn against somebody, it's because they realize he can't sell their agenda anymore, and they're losing massive credibility because of him. But all I could say is, too late. You're not going to put a Republican puppet in there either and have us go back to sleep. That's why, despite the mainstream media demonizing him, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, people like that are so incredibly popular now across the political spectrum, is because people want constitutionalists. They want people that support the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, due process. People hunger for checks and balances. And the fact that now it's come out in AP, Reuters, Washington Post, what we told you years ago, it came out years ago, that they were targeting and auditing and harassing Tea Party people. We have an article up on Infowars.com dealing with that, how it was a conspiracy, leaked documents, IRS targeting conservatives in what media called conspiracy. And we have links to our articles and other articles from 3 years ago and 2 years ago saying exactly what is now being reported. In fact, they're now linking in the media to older articles where it had actually been mentioned. It's kind of like Fast and Furious, where Big Sis and Holder and all these people at the Criminal and Justice Department, they, if you remember, came out like 6 months into office and said, we need to get the guns because of crime in Mexico, and we've got an Operation Gun Runner tracking the guns. And then later they're like, we never heard of Gun Runner. We've never heard of Fast and Furious. Why? It's not true. We didn't know. We didn't mean. And then, of course, the memos came out that were planning to use it to blame the Second Amendment. This stuff is all hiding in plain view. So why now is everybody from Jon Stewart to John McCain, all these establishment people, why are they now turning on the precious, darling little Obama? Because they want to blame the failure in Syria on him. They want to blame the failure to get Obamacare properly implemented on him. It was never designed to be implemented. It's designed to rob people and make Berkshire Hathaway stock increase in value because it makes you buy insurance from them. Their whole system is really waking people up. So they hope that they can just destroy Obama now, if not actually indict him in the House, convict him in the Senate, impeachment. They're hoping that if they destroy him politically, that will satisfy people, like throwing someone into the mob to be torn apart, or throwing someone to the wolves that are tracking you through the woods, giving the dog a bone. Now, let's be clear here. I am very excited about Obama being brought to justice. I'm very excited. I'd like to see them all go to jail. And I think it's important to punish corrupt politicians. But I don't want to settle with the Republicans who are scared of too deep an investigation, breaking through compartments into their corruption. I'm concerned they'll try to just make Hillary step down in some type of public censure of Obama. We need more than that. And we can crowbar into this space and bust the New World Order wide open. If we seize on something like this, It could be their Waterloo. Coming to you live from the InfoWars News Center in Austin, Texas, radiating out across the entire globe. It is Tuesday, the 14th day of May 2013, and we're going to be live here, Lord willing, for the next 3 hours. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's what I want to do. I'm going to really try to control myself, which you know I won't. I'm going to try to hit the unraveling of the Obama administration, the Bozo administration, drunk on power, as Senator Rand Paul has said. You can watch that video up at drudgereport.com. They have a link to it right there in the middle column. We're going to be playing some of that audio for radio listeners here in the next segment. But I want to give the phone number out today specifically, again, for first-time callers. That means real first-time callers that have never had a chance to get through, to give us your take on why you think the bottom is falling out on Obama, why you think the establishment is turning against him, and how far you think this will go. I think most of it, in fact, I know most of that, depends on what we politically do. And it is very healthy. It shows that these people are not above the law. It is what is constitutional that Obama be indicted in the House and convicted in the Senate. And quite frankly, he shouldn't sail off into the sunset like Nixon, who said, I'm not a crook. I don't know anything about Watergate, the hotel, the break-in. And, well, now we're seeing the same thing out of Obama. I didn't know about Benghazi. I didn't know about the IRS spying on people and harassing them. I didn't know about the AP and other media being spied on. You didn't know? It's on record that Obama has had, I've seen numbers of 15 times, 20 times, no one knows, the prosecution of whistleblowers at the federal level for reporting on corruption to the media. There are scores of people serving prison sentences. We've had corrupt presidents before. We've had a corrupt establishment, but we've never had a persecution of the lapdog media like we're now seeing. And so there's a lot of things happening, but I think the over-the-topness of the corruption of the reporters having to submit their questions before press conferences, not just for presidential press conferences, but for federal press conferences across the board. The scripting of everything, the fraud, the arrogance, the White House saying we may just stop having press conferences and we'll maybe have a hologram president literally come out and make announcements. They have been caught across the board lying, and they've lost the people's confidence. Now, if Obama just gets a political spanking and this becomes a political diversion, it's a big loss for liberty. But you can smell that kind of visceral, electric, ozone stench of fear and running, trampling from the establishment. They are scared across the board because globally the currencies are melting down. We've been in a depression for 5 years in most sectors of the economy. By every old-fashioned benchmark, they're cooking the modern numbers. Government is giving itself red carpet treatment, $1 million a day for Obama to go on vacation, $500,000 a day for Biden. But it's not just here in the U.S. People are angry about this in England. They're angry about it all over the UK. They're angry about it in Israel. They're angry about it in Europe. They're angry about it in Russia. People are sick of it. And they now see through the fancy ties and the sports jackets and the Air Force Ones and the Hollywoodization of everything. People are really getting nauseous from the intoxication of lies, and they're ready to hug the toilet and get the poison out of them. Now, the question is, will we be able to get to that point? I certainly hope so. So let me do this. Let me go over the headlines here. Then I'm going to give the phone number out, and I really do want to take calls this hour and the next hour. Then we're going to have top researcher on Monsanto and GMO to cover that big fight, Jeffery Smith, covering some of the Supreme Court rulings and things that have been coming down the last few days, and the march on Monsanto nationwide coming up. We're going to have him pop in for about 30, 40 minutes at the start of the third hour. We've also got Dr. Kermit Gosnell found guilty of murdering infants in late-term abortions. We're going to be giving you the details on those counts. And they said what pushed the jury over the edge was the filthiness of the grimy clinic. That's a quote, the filthy, grimy clinic. So it would have been okay if it was all glistening white and clean, and if he hadn't made jokes about babies and killing them and how much he enjoyed it, and there wouldn't have been all the witnesses about them, babies swimming in toilets. If he would have, done it in a professional manner, it's like, oh, we torture, but it's professional. Oh, we spy on you, but it's done by professionals. I always notice they go, it's very professional at Abu Ghraib, raping the children in front of their parents. It's very professional. I've said if Hitler wore a pink uniform, we probably never would have, even when he declared war on us, fought back. As long as you act non-threatening like Google and Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett and all these crooks, they are crooks. Getting $44 billion of bailout money after you give political money to the people that make the decision at the Treasury to then give $44 billion to you, it's hundreds of billions now, that's criminal. Google breaking into everybody's computers, hacking past with government back doors they were given to steal your passcodes and everything and spying on you. They've been convicted of that, but we're given a slap on the wrist. That's criminal. But see, they don't, in the old days, people liked somebody dressed up in a black uniform, acting tough. That was seen as a strong leader. So people like Hitler and Mao and Stalin would stomp around and say, I'm coming to kill you. And that would kind of scare and awe their minions, because they would see projected power through the leader. But nowadays, they're more sophisticated. They walk around with a metrosexual lisp and all of this. That's a complete cover, ladies and gentlemen, because they can get everything as long as they go, I'm liberal, I'm a Peace Prize winner. We have video up on Infowars.com of a Syrian rebel group cutting a guy's heart out and eating it. And these are the groups, but even in the British news, the public is now outraged, the BBC reports, over the fact that, quote, the West is funding al-Qaeda. See, that's another reason Obama's in so much trouble. They've got to burn somebody for this. This is a larger global policy to create radical jihadis, to fund radical Muslims, and then to allow them to attack or to provocateur them into attacks. This is all on record. So see, that realization is now coming to the forefront of people's minds, and there's a total loss of credibility. Last night, I don't go out late very often, but I went out and heard some amazing rockabilly music at a dive bar in East Austin with Hank Hill and Beavis and Butthead. I was hanging out with all of them. Literally, Mike Judge. What a cool guy, man. He is something else. And we went on for about 5 hours. And I talked to countless people who were listeners who said, man, it's all coming out. And everybody I talked to says they're now waking up. And, wow, your show's almost passé now. Just a few years ago, you were saying they're spying on you without warrants, and, oh, they'd never do that. That's a police state. And, again, I'm not bragging that I'm out in Austin and people are coming up saying, hey, people are waking up. I'm bragging that they're waking up. I'm giving you a good report. Because people now really get that there's sinister forces and that we better get back to what made America great, keeping government on a very, very short leash. Very, 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 very short leash. I tell you, I needed to blow some steam off. It was... I really love good rockabilly music. It was great stuff I was listening to last night. Really enjoyable. Man, it's great live music. I think I'm going to go out and see Weldon Henson Wednesday night. It's his drummer that was in this other band. He's also in the Derailers. Man, it was good. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to break. I'm going to reset and untangle my mind. And then we are going to get into all the different gates, the son of Watergate, as it's being called by Drudge, up at drudgereport.com. It's also all up at Infowars.com and prisonplanet.com. Paul Joseph Watson has an article, Liberals Defend Obama for Spying on Media. At first it wasn't happening, and now the White House connected and run groups, I mean, it's literally White House groups, are coming out saying, it's no big deal. No big deal. Nothing to worry about, Mr. Gopher. Not a plastic explosive or anything. Nothing to worry about. And then we've got CIA cannibal eats dead Syrian soldier's heart. Rand Paul, AP phone spying proves Obama is drunk on power. That clip's coming up. Drudge says assume all communications are being monitored. The White House says it had no idea. The DOJ seized the AP's phone records. Same IRS that targeted conservatives will demand your private health insurance records. Leaked docs, IRS targeting conservatives in what media called conspiracy. And I haven't even gotten into I'm going to cover it all when we come back, but here's the toll-free number. I want to hear what you think about all this. 800-259-9231. That's 800-259-9231. Strap yourselves in. That's right. Who's the real fool out there? They tell you it's wise to follow the mainstream corporate media that absolutely has bad will towards you. You know that. You don't need Alex Jones to tell you that. I don't have all the answers. I'm trying to figure it all out. I just know these people are a pack of crooks and a pack of liars and fellow travelers with corruption. And I am not part of them. And I'm saying clearly, I'm not with you. I don't want to be with you. I want away from you. And I want you out of my life. I want free association. I want to keep my money. I want to keep the fruit of my own labor so I can work with people I want to work with and build a civilization. You control freaks telling us how all day how we didn't build this or we didn't do that and lecturing us that parents aren't really parents of their kids and the state is. Listen, you freaks, keep drinking your own Kool-Aid. Keep smoking your own dope because the only people buying your bull are you and your minions. Tyrants always fall, ladies and gentlemen, but it's a tectonic battle that goes on and on and on and on. It isn't a zero-sum game where either one side totally wins, the other side totally loses. You only totally lose if you give in to pure evil. And I don't want to get into the philosophic anymore. The point is that there is a war going on. There's always a war going on between freedom and tyranny. Now, you better decide what side you're on. It's very simple. Let's go to these headlines here. And we'll come back with your calls in the next segment at 800-259-9231. Document cam, please. Look at this. White House says it had no idea the DOJ seized the AP's phone records. Oh, I'm sure. And they didn't know about Benghazi, and they didn't know about the IRS, and Eric Holder, he didn't know about Fast and Furious either, and they didn't know anything about anything. Other than press reports, we had no knowledge of any attempt by the Justice Department to seek phone records from the AP to try to go after leakers. Leakers exposing their criminal activities. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, they have the FBI deputy head of counterterrorism on CNN a week and a half ago. We played the clip several times. It was in the New York Times, you name it. And the media is like, well, that's reasonable. They're trying to keep us safe. Oh, every phone call, every email is recorded? And so once you're a person of interest, oh, that doesn't violate the Fourth Amendment, then they go back to the recording. It'd be like your neighbor saying, I'm going to plant a camera in your bedroom to watch you and your wife have sex, just in case down the road, if you ever do something bad to her, let's just say you kill her, because you're guilty until proven innocent. Then I can go back and see, the video feed we're going to be capturing live. That's the equivalent of the absurdist nature of this. And so they're in the news, the New York Times going, oh, and by the way, Obama wants to fix the wiretapping system. He wants to just be able to do it without warrants, and just go ahead and have everything wired through the NSA. It's already been done, and that's what the FBI deputy director said on CNN. He said, "Well, we can't really use this in a trial, but everything's been recorded. Everything's been saved." Well, we already know that from the Telecommunications Act they put in place back in '96. It paid the $9 billion. And by law, the telecommunications companies, by October 1st, 2001, they had 5 years to do it. They had to have it in place to where they could go back and find the recordings of everything. And it's all there in the law. Doesn't mean it's constitutional. It's a law on infrastructure. Just like cybersecurity just basically legalizes the warrantless wiretapping, but you can't legalize something that's unconstitutional. So this is what's going on. The White House says it had no idea the DOJ seized the AP's phone records. I know nothing. Remember Hogan's Heroes? Sergeant Schultz? I know nothing. Nothing. Is that pretty good, Sergeant Schultz? Damn it, Bobby. Continuing, government probe obtains wide swath of AP phone records. Butane is a bastard gas. I better stop the thank you imitations. Government probe obtains wide swath of AP phone records. Under sweeping subpoenas, Justice Department obtained AP phone records in leak investigation. And if they were already spying, they went to get the subpoena to make legal what they already had. Okay, so let's run through the headlines and then to your phone calls here today. Yes, this is Watergate. This is much bigger than Watergate. Benghazi is much more hardcore and serious and a loss of life than Watergate. I'm not saying Richard Nixon was a good guy. I certainly would have supported his impeachment and stepping down. But Benghazi, standing down while people got killed, being caught lying about it, ordering the stand-downs, using al-Qaeda security forces they'd hired to run Benghazi to do it. It's just their policies are so Machiavelli, so evil, and they're in plain view. So you've got that going on. And I think the power structure, in fact, I don't think I know, they're scared that the public has finally understood that the global crime syndicate runs al-Qaeda. And so the rats are now leaving the sinking ship because they're afraid the sinking ship may blow up and they don't want to be taken down with it. It's really that simple. You're seeing a stampede of fear away from Obama, but more than that, his own minions don't like him. His own minions don't like the dishonorableness of it. It's creepy. And so the completely amoral behavior of Obama and his controllers is really setting him up for a giant fall. Now, I'll say this again. You've got the IRS scandal going after groups. I was reading the quotes yesterday where the Inspector General was breaking down the directives, and it said, people that promote the Constitution, that's a quote, people that are fearful of big government, people that don't trust the government. I mean, America is founded on don't trust the government. If you don't like that, get out of America. Because everywhere else, governments are like North Korea in history. Thank God our forebears tried to tie down government. It's certainly been corrupt and out of control, but nothing compared to other countries because we had some basic checks and balances, and I know I'm preaching. But they ordered this spying. They've been spying on whistleblowers and persecuting them. Folks, I've had so many sources in the last 18 years, and I've developed some really good ones the last 10 or so, because people have learned that I won't, ever give up sources. In the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, my sources have dried up to almost nothing because they're all scared. I mean, I don't want to do the globalist job for them and scare people from whistleblowing, but whistleblowers already know this, and they've been told. The memos have come out where they threaten people in the federal government. Even if they know crimes are being committed, they're not to report it to even another agency, or they can be prosecuted. Prosecuted by kangaroo courts? I mean, reporting on crime outside of your agency is totally protected under common law, Bill of Rights, Constitution, jurisprudence, precedents, and it's being overthrown. That's how you know these are really bad people. And, I mean, I'll have a FEMA person on. They will mail me info. They will say, please call me at this number from another line, you know, not part of your phone system. I'll call them. And this happened a few years ago. And then they, you know, give me more info. I call, I check the information. It breaks. And then they call up a week later and say, oh, my God, they called me in. They know it's me. And they've been listening to my phone. They're listening to everybody, ladies and gentlemen. But something's happening. People in government are getting to the point of going, you know what, I don't care. And I think if you're going to go public, do it like Shebel Edmonds. Go have a press conference. Ahmad Salam was given the bomb, real detonators. He said, are you going to blow up the World Trade Center for real in 1993? I didn't sign on for this, and he knew they were setting him up, so he recorded them. And then he went and gave a press conference with his lawyer with the recordings and the transcripts for the media. And so they paid him off $1.4 million. And instead of going to prison, he got paid and got to leave the country. Now, what's the moral of that story? If you're going to whistleblow, go put it on YouTube, shoot your own video, hold up your documents, say what you're doing, send it out to 100 media outlets, and some of them will have the courage. You know, you saw the FBI in the Boston bombing going, don't look at drills and don't look at any photos this guy's got. Only look at what we give you. And Badandi said there were several hundred press in that huge briefing room. Boston bombing, worldwide press conference. We have the video. It was hundreds. Over 200, estimating. And none of them would dare go look at his info or ask questions. They nodded their heads, and a few of them, including some mainstream media people that are very well recognized, but they wanted to be off record, they came over to Dan and the other guys, our camera guys, after and said, we want to say you got incredible courage. They said something else. They said you got giant you-know-whats. We admire you. We admire what InfoWars is doing. We're scared. And we know this is a stage deal. And or we know something's fishy, was the quote. And then I talked to another big national reporter, and he's like, oh, I think something's fishy. No, I agree with you. They're covering up. Well, come on. Come on. I mean, we can't just sit here forever and just put up with anything. That doesn't protect society. It destroys society. Are we mice or men? I mean, who are we? I mean, we're going to put up with anything out of these people? And, you know, I had a state police officer. He wasn't out of Kansas. I mean, out of Missouri. It was, see, I don't lie on air, except I will involuntarily, to cover for sources, I will scramble where the stuff came from sometimes. It was state police, but it was not state police in Kansas City, in Missouri, that gave us the info. It was a California senior member of the state police who was at a federal meeting in Missouri. So technically it was Missouri, but they still found out who he was and went after him and demoted him. I was given information by a federal marshal. They found out about that. I mean, they're listening to the phones. You know, I sit there with members of the press. I was sitting there with Esquire. And I'm going, listen, they've called up my wife and said what she was just talking about, and they've done it to me before, to let you know they're tapping your phones. Believe me, we're not in Kansas anymore. And the guy looked at me and did not believe me. Because these people are naive, ladies and gentlemen. And what's happening is America is losing its naivete. I'll go to calls, as I promised. I'm going to go to your calls right now, or I never will. Then I'll get into all the details of the IRS, the Benghazi Gate, the spying on the AP. And again, it's just like the Deputy Director of Counterterrorism said on CNN. You guys pulled that article up, I forget his name. We played it twice last week. It was all over the news. You saw it. He said, well, no, we can't really use this in court But then once something happens, we can go back, we have it recorded, and then we can get a subpoena and stuff and use it in court. See, that's what they're doing. They're illegally spying on everything, and then when they want to use it in court, they go get a subpoena. And it's kind of like shopping. You know, it's kind of like they go and dig through your drawers without a warrant. It's not kind of like that's exactly what they do. They kind of go and dig through all your dresser drawers, dig through all your stuff, your bank accounts, and then if they find something or plant something, that's the bigger issue. Then they go and get the warrant to make it all on the up and up. And now they're too lazy to do that. We don't even want to do that. I was talking to some Texas Rangers who came in here threatening a subpoena if I didn't give them a source on some Marines that were in the same unit. Gave us photos of the supposed shooter of Chris Kyle, the most deadly sniper author. And they came over here and they said, well, we'll come back with a subpoena. Then I called them back later and I made some other phone calls. I got the guy's card in there. Hey, will you bring me that card in there? It's hanging on Chris's computer. At least it was last week. And I call them up and they're like, oh, Alex, don't worry about it. We got it somewhere another way. And then I ran into one of these Texas Rangers later. They're like, oh, you know, we got ways of getting stuff. And I went, what? Data mining, snooping from third-party companies? He goes, you said it, not me. I mean, here it is. Gary Phillips, Texas Ranger. You know, I talk about stuff like this and the trolls go, there's no Texas Rangers at your office. There's no Secret Service at your office. When they come up here with subpoenas and gag orders and stuff, then later it's, you know, in the Associated Press a year later, when some idiot listener puts threats on Infowars.com, it's just, this is the real world is what I'm telling you. This is the real world. And instead of it intimidating us, we need to be like the state police in Colorado when they go to these meetings and the FEMA tells them, this is restricted, not classified, but restricted. What are state police doing in meetings where it's quasi-classified? That just means they don't want this info out to the public. They use that to protect their criminality. We want to know if you're ready to confiscate guns from Christians. And then they're sitting there with 3 FEMA guys in the room, monitoring the room full of 100 state police, senior officers, to see senior troopers, to see who is a patriot and who isn't. They're running psyops. They're running clandestine operations against America. They're finding out who's a criminal. I mean, they're getting on MSNBC and saying your kids don't belong to you in ads. They're just trying to normalize all this. And we don't need it to be normalized. We need to throw this up. This is poison. I hate to use the analogy, but have you ever had bad food and it's not sitting right? And one time I'm college, we went to a restaurant and all you could eat. And my 2 buddies got real sick the next day with that night with food poisoning. And I'm not somebody that gets nauseous very often, but it didn't sit right. It tasted weird. And I just had a gut feeling and went in the bathroom and threw up and got it out. And I mean, I didn't get very sick. They did. The point is that you've got to recognize poison. And I know I'm preaching. It's just these people are poison. And the answer is do not be afraid of all the fact that they're spying on us. Good. I hope you're listening, criminals, because you're the people that have something to hide. And we're going to expose you. And we're going to rout you out. And we're not intimidated. We're not intimidated that you're listening to us, crooks. That indicts you. The answer is all of us getting active. Good. You know what they'll see on their radar screen? 1 million blips coming at them. You're not going to knock that down. You're not going to stop that. It's the mass effect. They cannot stop a mass awakening effect. And that's what's happening right now. So they're desperately trying to normalize it with a normalcy bias of flaunting all this, and it's not going to work. Jason in Florida, thanks for holding. What do you think about Obama meltdown gate, chilling like a villain? Obviously, he's a disgusting puppet and everything, but bringing down their prize puppet, I believe will be a great defeat to the New World Order. What do you say?
Well, honestly, Alex, I've really just got to admit with everything you're saying. I try to find fault with what you're saying. I really do. But I've got to admit, I mean, this type of stuff goes all the way back to J. Edgar Hoover. They collect information, get the subpoenas later. I mean, we've got to seize on what we've got now. We've got the AP scandal. We've got the IRS Tea Party, the Benghazi. People forgotten about Fast and Furious. We've got to remind them. We've got to call our senators. We've got to contact them. We've got to demand that they investigate this. We've got to seize on what we have now, and we've got to move forward with that. We can't just allow this to be, you know, another business as usual type of situation.
I agree with you. And if we ask the question, will Obama politically, with his gang of miscreants, gang of arrogant twits, will they succeed? That's up to us. I don't think they're going to get away with this if we use this against them. And now is the time to hammer down. And this is going to give everybody else cover. That's why Mitch McConnell and others are saying a lot more is coming. They've known all this stuff. They've been scared to use it. It's all going to start coming out, and it's going to get very, very nasty.
Since 2010, 2011, we know who the criminals are. They're Eric Holder. They're Hillary Clinton. They're Barack Obama. We've got to seize now. We've got to just make sure that our congressmen and our Senate, you know, go after this aggressively. I mean, it's just now or never.
Absolutely. And again, not let all their creepy police state stuff scare us. And when I say police state, I don't mean the average cop. I mean police state North Korea. You know, I mean the political control of the police is going into a very dangerous area. It needs to be reversed. I appreciate your call. Great points, Jason. Let's talk to another Jason in Alabama. You're on the air, Jason.
Hi, Alex. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I want to agree that I don't think Hillary can get out of this. You know, all of this has happened on her watch.
It's not enough, though. Hillary's not enough. They all need to go to jail.
But I definitely agree with you on that one. Honestly, I don't see how Obama can get out of this, considering, you know, he came out, I think it was 2 weeks after the attack happened in front of the UN, and 3 separate times he blamed the YouTube video. And then he came out just a couple of days ago and said that 2 days after the attack happened, they knew it was terrorist. They knew everything about it. I mean, he's been caught in a major lie in just the past few days.
Yes, and now he's saying, I know nothing about Benghazi. And neither does Hillary. I know nothing about IRS Gate. And it's intimidation. It's spying. It's harassment. I know nothing about spying on the media. Eric Holder did it. Okay, well, Eric Holder, then, there needs to be hearings. He needs to be indicted, but he's the Justice Department. How do you indict the guy that's over that? You can't have Hitler over the Nuremberg trials.
I'm not sure exactly how we get Obama.
Special prosecutor. You have a special prosecutor. But then they'll be political and drag it out over several years. We don't need that. We need grand juries. We need state movements. We need the media to call for Obama to resign now, along with Biden. I mean, we need to get rid of these criminals. They're dangerous. And here's the other question. You think they might stage something to try to get out of this? Could staging something get them out of this?
Well, I think a couple of these different things that have shown up in the news the last couple of days might have been them trying to release new information to get our attention off of Benghazi.
Well, I agree. Benghazi is the ordered stand down and is murder, and they have been caught red-handed, and the whole military knows it because there were so many witnesses in those situation rooms of NATO, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, CENTCOM, all of it. There were probably, let's be conservative, 1,000 people that or more, they estimate. I've seen different estimates that were watching different live feeds of that going on and know it was a stand down. And so as bad as IRS Gate and phone hacking gate and all this is, it is nothing compared to that. But they know the media wants to go with all these stories. And so now allowing some of that, see, the average media is kept on a very short leash. I think it's more than them distracting, but I think that's kind of the hope. But I don't think that's going to work. I think it just piles on to Benghazi. Wow, that is Machiavellian, if burning themselves is a distraction from the big one. Because, yeah, no, I mean you're talking treason stuff with Benghazi, not just your run-of-the-mill corruption. We'll be right back. Stay with us. More calls. All right, we'll continue with calls into the next hour, and we're going to get an update on all the different activities of Monsanto and their bio-warfare system. I'll also get into Russia to expel U.S. diplomat who they caught with wigs and all these fake glasses and stuff. And our media's like, he's not CIA. And, of course, it's some yuppie surfer dude, one of the underling diplomats there running around with, wigs and glasses, probably had fake noses, playing the part of a spy with a bag of money and instructions for the Russian. Oh, yeah. I mean, let's run around with written instructions. It's just these people are... See, the average yuppie thinks if they join the CIA, suddenly they get like wings like Icarus and they can fly around and they're all powerful and cool. And it's the new class system where if you're in government and you talk into your earpiece and you strut around and I mean, I've been in D.C. and had Secret Service run over to me just anywhere in the city trying to videotape anything and go, I'm Secret Service, I'm diplomatic security, you little filth. And they're all just puffed up and they've arrived, they're somebody, why, they're with the government. I mean, move to North Korea. I mean, it's just a bunch of idiots running around acting tough, hiring al-Qaeda to commit mass murder all over Syria, and they put out propaganda videos eating people's hearts. Leaders of the Free Syria Army, the al-Qaeda group, and now even mainstream news admits they're al-Qaeda. And then they've got this guy with a guy's heart with all the aorta arteries hanging off the top of it, and he's chewing on it like a rat or something. Outrage at Syrian rebels shown eating soldiers' heart. And all that's going to do is make the Syrians fight harder. I mean, what, you think some punk chewing on somebody's heart's going to scare everyone? And, oh, you're chewing on someone's heart. We'll give in to you now. But that's what criminals always do. They dominate, they intimidate, and then they think, if I just intimidate more, it'll make everyone bow down to me. No, you don't get it. People were just trying to be nice and stay out of your way until you pushed it, and you pushed it, and you pushed it. We're going to go to break here in a moment and come back with the next hour, and I promise go right to your calls. I want to hear what you think about Obamagate and where all this is going. Think about how they've denied their spying on us, and now it's all admitted. And then I've got articles here where the so-called left is defending Obama. And they're in the news. I've got the articles. I'm going to cover it in the next hour. Defending spying on Tea Parties and harassing Tea Parties and using the IRS to demand records of who came to Tea Party meetings like it's the Soviet Union. That's why they're going to use the IRS to get your medical records now. That's why they're going to use it to enforce everything, because it's the unconstitutional criminal group that will do whatever they're told. It is outrageous. Now, before I go any further, just briefly at the end of this hour, there is a revolution happening of awakening against tyranny. And the biggest and best thing you can do is spread the word about this broadcast and Infowars.com and the free iPhone app and the free audio and video streams, everything that's at Infowars.com/show or Infowars/listen. It all takes you to the same place, because that's what I'm after, is waking America and the world up and having a future for my family. And I know that you want the same thing, so we are aligned when it comes to wanting a good, prosperous, justice-filled future. Also, support us financially. I have found the best videos, books, bumper stickers, T-shirts, water filters, non-GMO seeds, all of it at the huge online shopping center there at InfoWarsStore.com. You can also get subscriptions to the magazine, InfoWarsStore.com. You can also subscribe to see the nightly news and all my films. One membership is really 11 memberships, 55 cents a month per person, prisonplanet.tv. All right, we're into the second hour. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Obviously, Obama is preparing, if this continues to go this direction, for his Waterloo, his Trenton, his Battle of the Bulge. What does that say for the collectivists, though, and why is that happening? That's why I've opened the phones up. I'd like to get your take on it. 800-259-9231. I do have the Russia to expel U.S. CIA operative, they're saying. We're going to talk about police shootings up all over the country. Actual crime rates are way down, but police shootings are way up. So we're going to look at why is that, and I know the answer, at least the biggest portion of the answer, a lot of contributing factors. The latest on Syria, the latest on the abortion doctor, Kermit, found guilty, a real victory for liberty. These were babies outside the womb that were viable. They'd have to drown, and now convicted or chop up. So that's coming up as well. Let's go to the next caller. Who's up next here, John? Geraldine in New York, you're on the air.
Hi, Alex. Thank you for taking my call. A listener for almost 2 years, and I subscribe to InfoWars magazine.
Thank you.
And I've been awakened for 15 years now, and I don't think that Barack Obama is going to take the fall because there are too many people on his side. How do you think he got reelected?
Well, that's the more cynical view, and I think there's some of that, at least like Hitler in the bunker. They think that, oh, let them know we're listening to them. Let them know we're going to persecute them. Maybe that'll intimidate everybody. We've got to normalize the fact that we're going to persecute everybody because we're in control. Nobody can stop us, just like they've persecuted the whistleblowers. You would think that would turn the whole press against Obama. I mean, if Nixon or Reagan or Bush tried something like this, or Clinton even, it would be the end of them. I mean, the hardcore persecution of whistleblowers in the press, some would say that it's a panopticon effect. That's a French system where they'd have a tower in the middle of a circular cell block. 3 stories was the first French model of this. You guys pull up a panopticon prison and click Google or startpage.com. It'll have the images. And they had jail guards watching, so you felt like you were always being watched. You didn't have privacy. You had bars instead of a steel door to make you feel dehumanized and to make you feel like you were always being watched. So even when you weren't being watched, or even if they were watching, they couldn't enforce on everybody, but you would then self-censor yourself. So there could be a panopticonic effect.
Well, I know you think I sound cynical, but I just have seen it happen so many times since Clinton and all the things that he did, and his wife, of course, and nothing ever happened to them. Look how many people that they know are dead. I mean, how many people that you know...
Arkansas-ed, you mean? Arkansas-ed that...
Right?
No, I hear you. I'm just distracted by listening to myself in the background.
And I have been listening for a long time, and about 15 years ago, if I could just quickly tell you this story, how I became awakened, I started taking red rice extract, and for 4 years, I brought my cholesterol number way down. And, of course, that goes against the pharmaceutical company, so, of course, the FDA pulled it from the market. So as soon as they did that, I was awakened to their scam.
Well, they certainly don't want you to have choices. I mean, that's what it's all about. They tell you what to do, which is a form of slavery. They tell you, how to think, where to live, who to be. They lay out 4 or 5 different versions of who you can be. You can be a neocon, you can be a liberal, you can be a progressive, you can be a couch potato. Hey, how about I don't want to be any of those? How about I want to be free, informed, involved, aggressive, loving life? What does Ted Nugent say? Working hard, playing hard, America. We'll be right back. We are well into hour number 2 today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to continue with open phones throughout this hour, looking at Watergate 2.0. I mean, Benghazi, the IRS persecuting and spying and unconstitutionally demanding records of people that had attended Tea Party meetings as a secret police stomping around, getting in everybody's face. This is just some of what's going on right now and unfolding. This is just a small sampling. And I want to run through some of these headlines now and then go directly to your calls. 800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us. Let's look at some of these headlines right here. The White House says it had no idea the DOJ had seized AP phone records. Unbelievable. Mitch McConnell, Senate leader, says that a lot more is coming. This is only the beginning. Government probe obtains wide swath of AP phone records. AP reporting on that to track journalists talking to whistleblowers who are exposing criminal wrongdoing. Criminals at the Justice Department running defense for the White House, and the White House says they know nothing. I know nothing. You don't know, that's from Hogan's Heroes, folks. Under sweeping subpoenas, Justice Department obtained AP phone records in leak investigation. Drudge comes out. Matt Drudges says, warning to reporters and sources, assume all your communications are being monitored. Time to move back to the parking garage. And I posted this on Infowars.com, and people were like, what does he mean, the parking garage? That's where Deep Throat would meet with Woodward and Bernstein. The parking garage, because it's noisy, and it doesn't tend to be bugged. And in the old days, the FBI had the NSA dialing into your phone. It would just, you ever picked up your phone and it's like off the hook, but you'd put it on the hook and it's just sitting there like somebody's on the line? That's the old way to tap your phone. Now, that can happen naturally, too, but rarely. So there you have that tweet. You can follow us, by the way, at Real Alex Jones. And you can follow Drudge at Drudge. That's his personal Drudge. He's got his Drudge Report, one that's bigger. Okay, continuing. White House responds to Justice Department secretly obtaining phone records. Again, we are not involved, as I just mentioned. Liberals defend Obama for spying on the media after years of attacking Bush for it, which was wrong, which we attacked him for. He got caught with some warrantless wiretapping, and it was almost curtains. Now they're doing it to the media on a much wider scale, and the usual suspects of Think Progress, I mean, you know, Soros, Obama, par excellence group, are saying, hey, we need to do this. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. So continuing here, Rand Paul says AP phone spying proves Obama is drunk on power. I will play that at the bottom of the hour after we take some calls. And leaked documents shifting into IRS. IRS targeting conservatives in what media called conspiracy. And then we link back in this Infowars.com article by Anthony Giuriardi to where this was reported by the alternative media years ago. Continuing, IRS scrutiny went beyond Tea Party, targeting of conservative groups broader than thought, Fox News is reporting. And that's all in the Inspector General's own report. This is confirmed. Obama says he didn't know. They need to look into it at the Justice Department. They're the people doing this at the Justice Department. Continuing, Benghazi, IRS, the son of Watergate, asked the Chicago Tribune. No, I'd say it's the it's Watergate squared to the next power. George Will says IRS scandal echoes of Watergate. It's a lot more than that. Same IRS that targeted conservatives will now demand your private health insurance records and your entire database of your prescriptions. The good old IRS of enemies list running that. IRS head Stephen Miller, mistakes were made. Hey, maybe I can go out and drive my Dodge Charger. The speedometer goes to 200. I haven't had it up to that. I won't say what I've had it up to, but it's pretty shameful that I would do something like that. Let's say the cops pull me over going 170 miles an hour. 170 miles an hour. Only once. I'm joking. I'm trying to act tough, folks. I didn't do that. Anyway, I had brand new tires on it when I did it. Okay. Anyway, it's awesome. The light bulbs are going. Kickstart my heart, man. I get high on speed. Top fuel funny cause a drug for me. My heart, kickstart my heart. Anyways, and when the cops pull me over, I'll just say, officer, I don't need to be arrested for reckless driving. I was in control of the vehicle. You know, this is an Autobahn-style road here. They go 200 on the Autobahn. Officer, I made a mistake. Well, then, Alex, you can go free. It's not a mistake. It's all premeditated. IRS head Stephen Miller, mistakes were made. IRS officials in Washington were involved in targeting of conservative groups. Really? Again, this is from yesterday. That's the Washington Post, so now it's real. When we were saying it was a conspiracy theory, but Senior tax officials knew of extra Tea Party scrutiny. Well, yeah, they got Democrats out defending it now. Well, of course we're targeting you bad people. Top IRS official didn't reveal Tea Party targeting and knew years ago. Oh, you've now been caught lying. You knew. Of course you knew. Of course you knew. You ordered it. IRS employees donated over twice as much to Obama in 2012. Well, yeah, so did Goldman Sachs. So you guys are big idiots, aren't you? All you people that work for the government think you're winners. You're losers. I mean, if you work for the government, that's one issue. But if you actually think you're on some winning team because you do, and that you're against us, you're morons. Exclusive, McConnell, IRS revelations just the beginning. I already mentioned that, but there's the Breitbart article on that with his quotes by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. Revealed the 55 questions the IRS asked one Tea Party group after more than 2 years of waiting, including demands for names of all its donors and volunteers. Secret police, university to bestow face of IRS scandal with honorary tribute. The woman in charge of all this illegal activity is to be given an award for American activities. Yes, the woman in charge of the IRS division responsible for reviewing tax-exempt status applications to harass, and who's at the heart of the ongoing scandal over revelations of agency targeting conservatives, just like the head of the Environmental Protection Agency and all the other people getting in trouble. Targeted conservative groups is set to receive an honorary tribute from Western New England University School of Law. Lois Lerner, director of the IRS Exempt Organizations Division, was slated to deliver the school's commencement address and be given the university's President's Medallion. Oh, the President's Medallion. Why don't we give Obama 100 more peace prizes while we're at it? Start putting them in Cracker Jack boxes. That would give it actually more value than this. Let me hit some other news, then we're going to come back with Joanne, Issamud, Tony, and Lynn, and others. And our phone system's got some phone lines down for some reason. I think they're going to reboot the phone system after I take these calls, so we'll reopen the phones after that. But I'm going to go to your calls after the break. Here is some news we already knew. This actually came out under Tony Blair, but it's in the Daily Mail today. Immigrants. We sent out search parties to get them to come and made it hard for Britons to get work, says Mandelson. Labour sent out, that's the communists in England, search parties for immigrants to get them to come to the UK. Lord Mandelson has admitted as part of a Labour plan under Blair and continuing under Gordon Brown. What do you think our government does? They give welfare to illegals that citizens can't give. They give tuition to illegals, free tuition or in-state tuition citizens can't get. And they're above the law because they want to drive down the wages. They don't want to help the immigrants. They want to make us as poor as Ukraine or as poor as Mexico. Listen, I know how the universe works. I want Mexicans to be rich and prosperous with firearms and their kids healthy and not being used as a toxic waste dump ground. I want people in Nigeria to be successful and healthy. I want prosperity. They try to sell it that, oh, you're not having hospitality if you don't want open borders. Mexico has collapsed. I talk about Mexico because it's 80% or more of the illegals. And now they're coming out. In the DREAM Act, he's already frozen most of the deportations. They're already, and it's like, oh, isn't that sweet? Mexico dumps its criminals on the United States. Oh, you're fleeing, from a murder down there? Just come here and kill people. And who do they mainly kill? Their own community. I was talking to an insider last night. They were telling me about how the banditos, and I already read this, have a statewide are left alone by the police. And I was told why as well. It's just amazing. All right, I'm going to go to your phone calls, finishing up the motorcycle gang story. Basically, real motorcycle clubs like Hell's Angels, Banditos, things like that, are really used as the go-between for groups like, say, the Vikings in Los Angeles or the police gang to go out and carry out criminal activity for them. And then they'll choose who they think is the nastiest, toughest motorcycle gang to then carry out their operations for them. That's what the CIA and others, go back to World War II. They used the Sicilian Mafia and the invasion of the first invasion for intelligence of Italy. And that's how it's always worked. But my example of that is a group like that then gets chosen to work with this power structure because it was particularly violent and aggressive to begin with. So then your family gets pulled over and you get given tickets and your car searched. But then if you're in the Banditos or another outlaw motorcycle gang, then the police all leave you alone. But you and your family, the housewife gets pulled over, all her stuff thrown all over the place, taken to jail if she's had 2 beers. Now, what does that tell you about how to be free? I'm not saying go off and be like the Banditos. You decriminalize the drugs to dry up that entire culture. But while that's going on, how are you going to be treated laying down to government? How are you going to be treated acting like a coward? How are you going to be treated laying down to everybody? America became great because we didn't lie down and people were scared of us. Now we think the American flag is a man bent over with a government goblin behind him. And let me tell you, or a ostrich with its head stuck in the sand, or the TSA with its hand down your wife's pants. That is an act of gang domination of you and your family. And we will become like Mexico very shortly, a dominated gang-run culture if that continues. If good people don't get together and assert our rights over the corrupting government and everywhere else, we will all become slaves. And that's why when the cops pull me over and want to search my car for drugs, I laugh at them. Number 1, you're violating my 4th Amendment. Number 2, you're fishing for stuff. Number 3, the government ships in and controls the drug trade. And don't say you don't know that, cop. What are you giving me a problem for? I'm just doing my job. Doing your job, you work for a government that doesn't exist and is illegitimate. Is that clear? If they ever restore the republic, abolish the Federal Reserve, get due process back in, it'll be a legitimate government. Until that point, man, this thing is far gone. And the only way to restore the republic is to withdraw your consent from this and to stop recognizing it. The illegal aliens don't recognize the government. They're above the law. Because we have a criminal government. The only way now to be free is to just, more and more I realize this is just, none of it's real. It's all garbage. It's all garbage. And I'm sick of it. Let's go ahead and talk to Joanne in Arkansas. Joanne, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. Finally, nice to get through to you finally.
Welcome.
They should change the name of this from Watergate 2.0 to Murdergate.
Ooh.
I mean, that's essentially
Benghazi Murdergate. Oh, my God, that's a good...
I'm sorry. Nobody died during Watergate. So they're making it seem like, oh, it's just this little bit of Watergate going on. No, it's a murder.
You're absolutely right.
And the puppets are going to be taken out, but I'm sure they're not going to go behind the curtain yet.
Well, the only reason the system's upset is because made men, that's what they are in the State Department, that's over the whole thing, over the CIA, you name it, made men were killed. And that's why the system is so upset, too. It's like, why did you kill our own people? To cover up the missiles you gave al-Qaeda. I mean, it's so lawless now that our government publicly runs al-Qaeda while weird potbellies grope our wives and children looking for bombs. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And they will look over this and then say, oh, okay, they killed those people, but they didn't kill the people in Boston. They didn't kill people on 9/11. They would never do that. I mean, why would they, if they would kill these people, why wouldn't they kill these people?
They estimate the numbers of dead Syrians to be astronomical, over 50,000. When you look up number of dead in 3 years or 2.5 years Syria conflict, no one knows the exact numbers. Our government is funding that against civilians. I mean, they're blowing up houses. They've got a guy, one of the rebel commanders, eating a heart, saying, I'm going to kill all the Alawite Muslims, which is a minority Muslim group that's peaceful. You've got an al-Qaeda guy from Saudi Arabia eating a heart on TV, saying, I'm coming to kill you. But it doesn't work on the Syrians. They don't get in a fetal position. They are fighting back and taking their cities back. Al-Qaeda thinks it's intimidating Americans or something that roll over and, urinate all over themselves. It's not what's happening. They're fighting Hezbollah. Hezbollah is defeating them. Okay, let's try to run through a bunch of your calls right now. And then I'm going to get into the Russia to expel U.S. diplomat I'm going to get into Dr. Kermit Gosnell, found guilty of murdering infants in late-term abortions. We're going to get into the latest on Syria conflict. U.S. and U.K. pledge to bolster opposition so it intensify. Al-Qaeda murdering and eating people's hearts on TV. Literally, there's video of this on Infowars.com. BBC's covering it. It's real. One of the opposition leaders eating hearts, saying, I'm going to kill everybody when I take over. Just totally out of their minds. And getting defeated, by the way. Getting defeated by Iranian Hezbollah that's been brought into the country. Our government saying they're going to intensify the support of them. Of course, the ambassador's not going to tell you about the missiles because, well, you know what happened to him in Libya. So we're not going to show the video of them eating the heart. If you want to see it, it's up on Infowars.com. And I've got some breaking gun news that we'll cover at the start of the next segment. I have some breaking news where legislators have been caught on a hot mic that they didn't turn off about after they register, they're going to confiscate. Mayor Pro Tem here in Austin, Mike Martinez, just says we're going to register and then take all your guns. And then laughs at people. I mean, it's yeah, we're going to register and take your guns. Of course, I'm not giving mine up, slave. By the way, the Austin police chief was in here, and we've been too busy to get around to showing this. And he said, oh, your guy at the gun rally, who wasn't our guy, you know, he cussed at Mike Martinez to get him to say that. It was their guy cussing, and we have it in high def with the audio showing it. I'm going to show the police chief saying that, and then I'm going to cut to the anti-gun saying it, and the police chief then telling me I was wrong on air and smiling, playing little tricks. I mean, maybe he's wrong, maybe slick. Arde Saveda is wrong, but next time he's in, I'll have that piece for him. I'm just reminding the reporters back there to go back to the last interview and then show that, because that's the type of games they play. Speaking of games, Obama is running around persecuting people and spying on people and spying without warrants and going after Tea Party groups and lying about Benghazi. And it's really waking people up that, wow, he did lie to us. I thought he was a really sweet liberal doing the best job he could do. Because of the Republicans. You know, the Republicans are so bad, Obama has to do this. And then when Republicans get in, it'll be, the Democrats are so bad, we've got to let the Republicans violate our rights, because, you know, if we don't, then the Democrats will get in. How about we get constitutionalists in? How about we get rid of Republicans that don't act like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul? How's that sound? Speaking of Rand Paul, here's an excerpt of the full article up on Infowars.com, where Rand Paul says that Obama is becoming drunk on power. And he's
Lincoln said, he says, you know, nearly any man can be tested and maybe meet up to adversity, but if you really want to test a man, give him power. I think in that sense, the president's failing that test of power because he has extraordinary power and he's supposed to be able to be wise enough to restrain himself. But he's using the power of government to investigate his enemies. He's tapping the phones of the press. And it turns out last year he signed legislation that allows him to detain an American without a trial and send them to Guantanamo Bay. This sounds like a president somewhat drunk on power, not cautious about how he uses power.
All right. Drunk on power. And good job, Rand, bringing up NDAA. And again, I've learned Obama's tactics. They're not hard. His White House lawyers, Justice Department, the criminal department, they write the NDAA to secretly disappear us into the night. The media then lies and says it doesn't say that. The constitutional lawyers look at it. No, it does. Then Obama comes out and criticizes it and says it does. I will veto it. Then it comes out he wrote it. Then I say, folks, the veto threat is to kill opposition. This is elementary. Everybody's like, Alex, he's going to veto it. And then he signs it on New Year's Eve 2 years ago at like 6 o'clock at night when nobody's paying attention. Was it like a Saturday night? And then I still have debates with people. Obama's not persecuting whistleblowers. Obama's not going after the guns. Nobody wants your guns, Alex. Piers Morgan. No one wants to take your guns. Really? I'm in a city where you took all the guns. Everywhere you crooks are in control, you take the guns. You usurper over here trying to take my Bill of Rights, the Constitution. By the way, Piers Morgan's a crook. He was over multiple newspapers planning fake news stories and is clearly, they've had courts rule was deceptive, and his underlings have all gone to jail for illegal phone hacking. But when I say he's a crook, I say he's a crook because he's over here in my country trying to overthrow my Bill of Rights and make me a slave. That's beyond being a crook. He's an enemy operative. But hey, he's already dying politically. Have you seen the graph? We showed it yesterday. He was 1 million viewers a year ago. 600,000 6 months ago. 500,000 a month ago. 400,000 now. At current rates, he will have 200,000, maybe 300,000 viewers in 6 months a year. I mean, what a joke. What a legend in his own mind. And again, I harp on this because these people, look at who the establishment thought we would want. Some hatchet man, insider trading manipulator, full of fake elitism and snobbery. That's what CNN execs, that's what they think is going to win. That's what they think America wants, is some redcoat lecturing down to us when the Brits hate his guts. By the way, nothing against Brits when I say redcoat. A redcoat is an imperial soldier in the service of tyranny. I call our own corrupt government redcoats. People always try to make it an anti-America, anti-England deal. The ideas in our revolution came out of Magna Carta, and the Parliament first voted to recognize the colonies. And then the King of England came in and threatened a bunch of stuff and gave a speech to Parliament, and they still narrowly got the votes for the war. And so my whole issue is everyone needs to reject redcoatism everywhere. And I mean, if Piers Morgan isn't a redcoat scumbag, nobody is. Let's talk to Lynn in Georgia. Thanks for holding her on the air.
Hello.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey. You may have already covered this, but ever since the Associated Press information came out, I had to ask the question. Hold on a sec. I don't know how to turn that off.
It's all right, ma'am. It adds a nice ambiance. Go ahead and make your point.
Okay. Ever since that came out, I remember that thing about the earlier secret press conference right before the real press conference, where the president selected certain Associated Press reporters to have this little closed door session. I'm thinking that's where he gave them the heads up that they were getting ready to come out with this. It's nothing new. They'd already told everybody that they've been recording everybody's phone calls and emails.
It's totally illegal. And again, they just hide the criminality in plain view, like TSA groping your family. Totally illegal.
Why should Associated Press be exempt? Maybe they thought they were. Maybe they got surprised when they found out that they were being recorded too.
Well, ma'am, here's the critical juncture we've come to. If we just accept they're doing this now that everybody seems to be upset about it, just because something's been going on for a long time and then people finally get upset, we can't be like, well, you idiots, why didn't you listen to us? We got to say, good job. Now, here's the other stuff, because people have to have that awakening moment. Just because we were awake before others doesn't mean now that we can't ever turn this around. And I'm not even saying they'll end up being destroyed because of this. It's a process. But they're trying to discredit the liberty movement. They're trying to get the public behind their gun control program because they need people power. We need people power. And we are for the people. We are for a new enlightenment, a new renaissance, a rediscovery of individualism. And so we are in a continued war. And yes, I understand being upset or cynical and going, this has always been going on the last 20, 30 years. They would just deny it before. Now they've been throwing it in our face, but they're failing. The throwing it in the face has caused a backlash. And so we need to now push that backlash over the edge into a tipping point. Let me tell you something. The reason they're getting armored vehicles and billions of bullets and training to do lockdown stuff and take over the communications and internet kill switches is because they're weak. They have engaged in all this bravado to put on a show of strength because they're really afraid, okay? And so I'm telling you, this is real. They're in trouble, and more is going to come. And we need, the Republican leadership will try to contain this because they don't want to break through the firewalls into them. I say let the whole thing run its course. I say abolish the Federal Reserve. That's the real people behind all this. Bring back the Republic. And again, if we believe it and just persevere, we don't have to win individual battles. We can lose every battle and win the war like George Washington. He lost every battle for like 3 years, okay, and then only had a few symbolic victories. We're actually having victories all the time. And, I mean, you've got me getting off into strategy and things. What exactly are you getting at here?
I'm getting at talking about winning hearts and minds for the resistance. Yesterday, I went back and looked at some old movies, and I had not seen Brainwashing 101, and I just want to say that if my problem with communicating with another generation has been, you know, they've been raised on Marxism, and they don't understand what we're saying. So college-age students in that video were so civil and level-headed and clear-thinking and straightforward. I was so impressed. I was encouraged, number one, but I just want to put a plug in for that video. If anybody's having trouble communicating with the younger generation, that one will do it.
It's called Brainwashing 101?
And it talks about these students who were persecuted by the administration of their colleges because they were putting up flyers for a conservative club meeting event on the college campus. Yeah,
that's from 2011. I've seen that video. Listen, ma'am, I appreciate your points. Let me tell you why it's hard to wake up some of the young people. They've been brought up on television, video games, and now iPads and iPods and all this stuff. And they're not, the language is shrinking. They're not communicating with people. And they don't feel empowered. They feel scared. They feel like acting trendy will make them successful. And then they wonder why there's no jobs and why they're not successful. So the system says, be a slacker. You know, just get into your, the fact that you're a failure. The way you reach out to them is saying, look, you're part of history. You have a destiny. There's a war going on. You've been lied to. And you've got to grab them by the shoulders and say, you've got to realize that there's a future and that you're part of it. And that there's a historical war going on, and things are actually incredibly interesting. We've got to give them an idea of the power that they have. They just put Carney up on screen from the Communist News Network. White House says that they need balance on probes, says we must weigh freedom versus national security. You've got to be kidding. So exactly. Okay, we're spying on you, but freedom versus national security. I thought our national security is our freedom. Oh, you saw the bombing in Boston. Now we got to have TSA on the streets. See how they're just doubling down like con artists? I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's go to Tony in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Tony.
Alex, how you doing today?
Good, brother.
Hey, just wanted to make 2 points quick and then ask you a quick question. First off, have you ever seen the TV show Burn Notice?
No.
Okay, it's based on a spy who gets burned. I think basically, since I'm not sure if you said Obama was CIA, maybe they're going to burn him and try and give him an act of redemption, where he's going to have to try and pull off something big to basically recover his name within the upper echelons.
Yeah, no, Obama was CIA. He came from a double-sided CIA active duty family on record, but he's above CIA. He is a foundation, Carnegie, Ford, Rockefeller Foundation. The whole family is above government criminal network group.
Right, and I agree with you 100%. My next question would be, I'll just skip my second point.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Do them all, brother.
My second question was, I sent you a thing about a game called Homefront a little while back, and basically it's where Korea was unified and invaded the U.S. Now you couple that with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3. Basically the United States gets invaded, and basically I think they're trying to condition people to that through martial law, and also when they bring in the blue helmets for the civil unrest.
Well, it's officially in the Washington Post that they've got deals to bring in foreign UN troops during civil emergency. It won't be a foreign occupation. It'll be our friends here helping us. And there's no doubt they are training for a war with real Americans. And they're committed to their program, and there is a war back against them within the system. Believe me, I have talked to high-level active duty Secret Service via somebody else's telephone. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, I mean, this is confirmed. And they said over 90% of the Secret Service absolutely hate Obama. And the stuff they see going on is why they hate him. I mean, they say, it is, there's a reason they're scared of leaks. And I wasn't told anything. I was just told almost everybody hates them. They know the New World Order is real, and they're all listening. So I shouldn't make fun of the Secret Service so much. I mean, look at Bongino, who quit. He was a good guy. We've had him on. I tend to bash the system so much. Look, it's compartmentalized. It's a bunch of crooks running roughshod. I mean, you saw the ATF emails and the video where they go, do as you're told. If you see what you believe is corruption, you can only report it to your superior, no one else, no other agency. Do what you're told and be obedient. So imagine being people in the government, just having to sit there and watch all this crime go on. I mean, does that answer your question, or what is your question exactly getting at?
Well, basically, you brought up that with the Secret Service. If they know he's committing these crimes, well, why don't they just arrest him?
Because that's not how it works. I mean, as a cop or a federal officer, you've got to have a grand jury and indictment, or you've got to have clear and present danger where the guys, if Obama, they came in and Obama was, killing children, they could arrest him, but then no one would believe him. The president would say, I'm the president. He was killing the children, and people would believe it. That's why you've got to discredit them to bring them down. That's why attacking them is important. It's these wars aren't like flip one way or the other. It's a war. It goes on and on and on and on. We push back this evil this time. It's like fencing. It's going to then regroup and come back at us. And on and on and on and on. It's heaven and hell. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. The devil is never a maker, unless that you give, you're a taker. All right, here's what I'm going to do so that we don't run out of time covering the story. I'm going to cover it when we start the next hour. And then we'll go to our guest. I want to get to more of your calls right now. This article has just gone up on Infowars.com with the audio. Oops, hot mic reveals lawmakers' intent to confiscate guns. And this is in New Jersey. Every gun owner, regardless of the state in which you live, is presently or will be the target of gun confiscation. A state-by-state framework of confiscation is being erected in front of us, and it strips us of our rights. At the conclusion of the New Jersey Senate Budget Appropriations Committee meeting last Thursday, an open microphone caught 3 state senators identified by voice as Senate Majority Leader Weinberg, Assistant Majority Leader Sandra Cunningham, Majority Whip Leader Greenstein, and at least one staff member talking candidly about their intent to confiscate all guns from the people they serve. And they're like, so when we come back, that's when we'll reopen it. And then we'll confiscate their guns. I'm going to play that coming up in the next hour. That audio and video just went up at Infowars.com via CanadianFreePress.com and the Northeast Intelligence Network, Doug Hagman. So, and I mean, we've got Dianne Feinstein saying, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in. That's the game plan. Before I go to Izamud and Joshua and Ernest and Nathan and everybody ahead of our guests joining us and that audio we're going to play for radio listeners. At the end of this hour, I just want to remind you, I'm building a news operation against the globalist. A nightly news, the syndicated radio broadcast, films, special reports. I'm trying to hire more journalists, more camera people, more editors. Obviously, it costs money. My goal is liberty in our time. I'm all in. I'm committing everything, trying to expand. I'm committing money I got separately in the last few years, from other family things to this. I am putting everything I can into the fight against the globalist. And I need your support. So go to InfoWarsStore.com or link through via Infowars.com and buy the books, the T-shirts, the videos. It all wakes people up, too. The very best Pro Pure water filters, 10% off, promo code WATER. We've got the big non-GMO, heirloom, open-pollinated seed center with all the best brands at the lowest prices. I've told my crew have the lowest prices. It's all there. The quality seeds, the water filters, the T-shirts, the books, the films. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. 888-253-3139. And again, you can also call and ask any questions. And don't forget the great health products, natural products, all of it there at InfoWarsHealth.com. Be sure and check that out as well. Okay, Izamud in Minnesota. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hello, fellow Info Warrior Alex Jones. Reporting for duty, sir.
So what's on your mind, buddy?
Well, I have lived in the system for 22 years, and I have seen Benghazi Gate happen on small scales. And let me tell you right now, the Goblin King's power blood alcohol level is exceeding 0.08, and people are finally starting to see it. I am an Info Warrior who specializes in stealth, by the way.
Who is the Goblin King? Janet Reno? I mean, Rachel Maddow? I mean, what's the name of that guy? Big Sis, Janet Napolitano.
Yeah, actually, she's the Goblin Queen.
Ooh, imagine if you crossed Obama and Mr. Napolitano. Ugh.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Look like Eddie Munster.
Yeah. Well, worse than that. Come on, worse than that.
All right, those are ad hominem attacks, actually. I mean, I'm not into guys, but I think he's pretty handsome. All right, we're going to get an update on Monsanto and the Supreme Court ruling, continuing with your phone calls. And I'm going to get into some big gun news at the start of the next segment. But right now, let's go back to Izamud in Minnesota. Okay, you're talking about the incredibly handsome, you say Goblin King, Big Sis, Cousin Ed, or what? I'm going to stop the joke. Okay, I apologize. No, are you referring to Obama as the Goblin King, sir?
Yeah, he is the Goblin King. If you've watched the movie The Hobbit, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Goblin King. So what is your issue on Benghazi Gate? All this, will it bring Obama down? What do you think's behind all this?
It will. Okay, his house of cards is going to fall because he's being exposed by his own minions. I've actually done some work in attempting to expose it myself. Because right when this story aired, and I was sitting in one of Metro Mobility's cars going to work, I thought something was funny about it. Being that I've lived in the system myself, and I've seen people with disabilities get provocateured into doing stuff, and I've seen that kind of stuff go on a small scale. I mean, it goes on a large scale. You just go up the Fibonacci sequence. So right when I heard about this supposed YouTube video setting off the Muslims, I'm like, that can't be it.
Well, they've been caught lying about it all, and I just think their lies have gotten too big, and he's outlived his usefulness, so the globalists will probably at least politically damage him to a certain degree. I mean, not even staging another shooting, that's not even going to save the Goblin Queen. I think he's the Goblin Queen, and Big Sis is the Goblin King. Now I figured it out. Thank you, sir. Let's talk to Nathan in Kansas. Yes, we are in Kansas. Let's talk about the Obama meltdown gate. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and it's great talking to you.
Great talking to you, brother. Listen, we don't have call screeners. You don't have to thank me for getting you on. I appreciate you calling. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, basically, a week ago, I went to the DMV to register my truck, a truck that I bought back in 2005 that I'm still paying property tax on. I spoke with the guard about the gun debate, and being from Kansas, Brownback and the state legislatures actually did a really cool thing, and they actually are trying to protect our gun rights.
Yeah, and the crook in chief over at the Justice Department says he's going to come against the state. Yes.
Well, so I asked him. Here he is. He's a law enforcement officer, pretty cool guy. I asked him, what do you think about that? And he basically said that he thought it was mostly grandstanding. He said not so much from Brownback, but possibly from Kobach.
Yeah, but at least they are grandstanding. By saying we're going to nullify your stuff, they've nullified and let the illegal aliens run around. That's illegal. Well, this is constitutional to have the states say we're not enforcing on stuff that's violates the Bill of Rights. Let me tell you, what gives orders in this world is the will to say no. What does Tony Montana say? Okay, I got two things in this world, my word and my huevos, and I don't break them for no one. And look, it just comes down to that. People think groveling gets them ahead. That is a lie. And so I salute what your state's doing. I don't think it's just ceremonial, because the whole world is a stage and each of us players upon it. I mean, as Bill Hicks, I know that better than most.
Well,
I'm being sarcastic.
I understand that, and I agree. But today I actually called, and I've called many times to my state representative, Kevin Yoder. And now the guy who answers the phone told me, I said, hey, what are we going to do? You know, obviously we're kind of leading the United States on gun rights, at least. You know, can we at least get something going as far as, getting Obama impeached, or the people that are in office that are totally trampling on the Constitution? Can we do something about this? He flat out said, it'll never happen. And I'm like, come on, man. You know, I said, there has to be something. And he goes, well, we'll just keep hitting them hard and da-da-da-da-da. And I told him, I said, I'm neither Republican or Democrat, And
I hear you. Wake more people up. Great job. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We'll continue the broadcast for the rest of the hour, probably into overdrive, into the fourth hour today. InfoWars Nightly News coming up 7 o'clock Central tonight. At the bottom of the hour, I will get to some of the economic and world news briefly, but Jeffery Smith, ResponsibleTechnology.org, one of the leading researchers and voices out there, a nexus point exposing the dangers of GMO and the war worldwide to force feed us this garbage. He's going to be joining us here in just a moment. Obviously, you've got the spectacle of Russia to expel U.S. diplomat. That's what the Wall Street Journal calls him. The guy was reportedly caught with wigs and a bunch of other, garbage, reportedly trying to pay off a member of the Federal Security Bureau, or FSB, kind of their KGB/FBI all-in-one enchilada. Just amazing that that's going on. Also, Dr. Kermit Gosselin was found guilty of murdering infants in late-term abortions. A Philadelphia doctor that the media tried to basically cover up the trial was found guilty yesterday afternoon of murdering 3 babies born alive in an abortion clinic. Fox News confirms he was acquitted in the 4th baby's death, and found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the overdose death of an adult patient. That's what triggered this whole thing. And they go into what a grisly house of horrors it was and how filthy it was, and that's what convinced the jury that it was really bad. I guess if it had been clean, it would have been okay, like Dr. Mingala's lab. Dr. Kermit Gosselin, 72, was convicted of first-degree murder and could face execution in the deaths of 3 babies who authorities say were delivered alive and then killed with scissors at a grimy clinic in a case that has become a flashpoint in the nation's debate over abortion. Regardless of what you think of abortion, folks, in the first trimester or whatever, come on, man. These are like 8- and 9-month-old babies that could be adopted. And then Planned Parenthood always goes, nobody wants the brown babies. That's like the catch-all. Really, there's more people wanting to adopt each year, look it up, than there are abortions. That's why the United States gets Korean and Chinese and African babies and Russian babies. And then now those countries are clamping down on exporting. People are infertile. They want kids. People love children. They want to raise them up. And they've got groups trying to keep black babies from being adopted by Hispanics or whites or vice versa, or blacks can't adopt whites. And it's the globalists trying to make sure those babies die. And pretty amazing. Now, one more piece of breaking news, then we're going to go to our guest. This is up at Infowars.com. Oops, Hot Mike reveals lawmakers' intent to confiscate guns. And this is in New Jersey. And I can clearly hear it with headphones on out there in the control room. I don't know if in radio land, if you're listening on AM or shortwave, on satellite, you'll probably be able to hear it. But you can clear, and by tonight's news, I want to soup up the audio. We can put this on, and the part where it's low, turn it up. They'll say alter the video. No, just turn it up. This has not been augmented or souped up. It needs to be. You can hear them ending as they classically do on C-SPAN. Well, this was recorded in New Jersey. And then, the leader of the Senate and then his 2 adjuncts say, yeah, okay, we're going to come back, and then we'll get the bill passed to confiscate their guns. And then you hear someone cackle It's like Mike Martinez, Mayor Pro Tem, at the gun grabber march. He's like, we're going to first register your guns, and then we're going to ban them. Everybody laughs. It's like, ha, 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 ha. I mean, bad guys want your guns. Hey, I hadn't done jack crap, Martinez. Okay, you're the one all mobbed up in the city government, and you know what I mean. And then you want my guns, punk? Ain't going to happen. And that's what they hate, is us saying it's 1776. We're not doing it. Don't cross this line. Do you want to take a life? Do you want to cross that line? Because it's a long way back from hell. And by taking a life, do you want to take the life of our republic? Do you want to kill the spirit of our country? Because that's what they're trying to do, is kill liberty right now. Let's go ahead and go to the audio of this.
We made some bills better. I know we couldn't make everybody happy, but we did what we could to at least improve the process. Thank you. We will see everybody back on the budget cycle next week.
They want to keep guns down in the hands of the bad guys, but they don't have any regulations to do it.
They don't care about the bad guys. All they want to do is to have their little guns and do whatever they want with them. That's the line they've developed. Yeah.
All they want to do is keep their little guns. Well, we're going to confiscate. That's right. We're going to get your gun yet, Mac. And, by the way, I got on guards protecting me. And you better know I own guns. It's come out Chucky Schumer, Feinstein, Michael Moore. All of them, they got the guns. But you, the little people, you ain't going to need those no more. Because, once we got the guns, political power grows out of the barrel. You know how much we like Mao Zedong, and that's what he said. We learned a lot from Chairman Mao. All right. Oh, boy. I could hear it really clear, actually, in my earpiece. And there's a transcript of it. It's up on Infowars.com with a nice little graphic. Can we punch this up? We took an actual Soviet poster of citizens hand over your weapons and translated it into English and added Obama's head to it. Oh, you got to love it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Let us now go to Jeffery Smith, a best-selling author. We had a lot of scientists on that he's recommended. Really just a great researcher. He is the director of the Institute for Responsible Technology. That sounds extremist. And is one of the world's leading advocates against GM foods. His book, Seeds of Deception, all of it sold at InfoWarsStore.com, I would add, as an evil capitalist, is rated the #1 book on the subject and has been a substantial influence on public perception and even legislation worldwide. Smith has reached tens of millions of people through hundreds of media interviews. It's got to be more than that. He produced the video Hidden Dangers in Kids' Meals and also writes a popular monthly syndicated column. He is the Genetic Engineering Committee of the Sierra Club. I don't like a lot of what they do, but I like that part. He is the former vice president of marketing for GMO Detection Laboratory and ran for the U.S. Congress. And he's from his home state in Iowa. We've gone and interviewed him there. Beautiful corn country. ResponsibleTechnology.org is the site. And, folks, we've got the science. We've got the studies. Rats get fed this stuff. They grow big, fat tumors. Honeybees eat it. They die. It runs from bad to worse. And I remember that Washington Post article last year. We covered a bunch where it said, farmers caught not following GM regulations. And in the article, maybe pull that up. There needs to be more enforcement on farmers. And it said they're not planting the refuges for the bees of the non-GMO corn, so the bees are going and getting the pollen from the BT corn that has its own pesticide and dying. So see, the poor bees are having to eat what we're fed. They're dying. So joining us is Jeffery Smith. There's big move, big Supreme Court ruling, big defeat, of course, but they own the courts. Globally, a lot of victories. What is the latest? We take you now to, I guess, are you in Iowa right now, Jeffery?
Today I'm in California, tomorrow in Connecticut, next week in Iowa.
All right, my friend. Well, your Skype looks like you're in the room with us. Tell us what's happening in the war for being able to label them. And even if somebody thinks GMO is a great thing, hey, go eat it.
Well, the Vermont House overwhelmingly voted in favor of labeling as a state bill. Now, it hasn't gone to the Senate there yet, but that was the first time in U.S. history that a House voted in favor of labeling. And last year, an explicit threat by Monsanto's attorney to the state of Vermont, saying that they would sue the state, caused the governor to essentially deep six the legislation at that time. So we're hoping that the governor finds his power and his energy and is willing to stand up to Monsanto and do what 90% of his constituents and 90% of Americans want, and what 64 countries already offer, and that's mandatory labeling of genetically engineered foods. Now, there's also live bills in many other states, including a ballot initiative in Washington state. You may recall that last year, a ballot initiative narrowly failed in California when the biotech industry spent more than $1 million a day lying about the impacts of labeling. But we think that Washington has a better chance, whereas California, 48.6% voted in favor of labeling. We think we'll have the majority there, and we may in fact win in Connecticut, Vermont, Maine, and many other states.
No one can argue with the right to have something labeled. And again, they always lie and say, we've always crossed plants. They're not crossing the same subspecies or families. They're not even involved in hybridization. Explain to people, we're going to break in a moment, but what's going on here? I mean, these are pharmacological crops, a lot of them, and rats don't end up having a very good time eating this.
Well, they take genes from one species, like bacteria, soil bacteria, for example, that produces its own toxic insecticide, and force it into the DNA of plants like corn. A study that came out this week showed that when albino mice were fed this Bt toxin, it caused damage to their red blood cells and possible advancement of leukemia. Other studies have shown that this Bt toxin can poke holes in human cells, can end up in human blood and in the blood of unborn fetuses, and it pokes holes in the cells. And so when it gets in the brain, because there's no blood-brain barrier developed in the fetuses, it might be causing brain damage as well. So this is an example of something that they've concocted and put on the market, claiming that this Bt toxin, which is known to break open the stomach of insects to kill them, is not harmful for humans or mammals, and now we know it's not true.
But what's wrong with a little leukemia? I mean, cancer rates are up. I mean, we are getting rid of the excess population. That'll save the earth. I mean, maybe the answer is feed our children extra GMO. They'll be free once they're in little coffins 6 feet under. Mr. Smith, please stay with us. By the way, major studies come out on a weekly basis, more than a weekly, every few days, big, prestigious ones. Smith can always go over them. That's why his books are so important. They're like textbooks. Everything's documented. Everything's very conservative. And he says maybe linked. I mean, it's overwhelming. Like Harvard's come out and admitted that they looked at 20-plus studies, and oh, yeah, sodium hydrofluorosilicic acid is causing brain damage and cancer. Why are they putting it in the water? This is a toxic waste that they'd have to pay to store, so put it in the water. They call it fluoride. It's really even worse. It's had some of its electrons manipulated. And so what Smith's getting into here is just the tip of the iceberg. And he is conservative about it all, but even being conservative, it's pretty bad. I saw a big study out last week where pesticides are linked to autism. No kidding. And GM BT's linked to brain damage. Of course. I mean, it kills bugs. They go, well, it's naturally occurring. Fungus, what, 100, 200, 1,000 times, depending on the variety, stronger, and then you eat it? I mean, bugs can't eat it, but you're supposed to. Jeffrey, what else is going on in the fight right now with this Supreme Court ruling? What are some of the new studies out there? It looks like we're winning the fight for hearts and minds, but Monsanto and others are in power, and so it's the immovable object comes up against an unstoppable force. What's going to happen?
Well, I do think that we're winning the overall war, but not on the level of the federal government and not on the level of the courts. The Supreme Court yesterday just announced that Monsanto won its court case against a farmer who purchased some seeds, actually some feed from a mill, and planted it and tried to say that the patent didn't apply because it was basically the second generation of Monsanto's soybeans. Well, the court didn't go for that. And it was interesting that Clarence Thomas did not recuse himself, even though he was a former Monsanto lawyer. And this is the third time that he didn't recuse himself on a GMO decision. So we've lost that recent one in the Supreme Court. A study came out today examining 5 years of the diplomatic cables, and there was about 1,000 cables looked at over 5 years, showing that the State Department is basically deployed as Monsanto's enforcement wing around the world, trying to push biotechnology on other countries. We see that the USDA is basically marching lockstep with Monsanto, with one exception. This week they did announce, or actually last Friday afternoon, they did announce that they weren't going to give a rubber stamp approval of the Agent Orange crops. Those are crops genetically engineered not to die when sprayed with 2,4-D, one of the components of Agent Orange, and those that are genetically engineered to resist dicamba. Both very, very serious toxins, could cause serious health issues, and they said they wanted an environmental impact statement done before they looked at the approval process.
Not to mention all this stuff now filling the water table.
Absolutely. We have now glyphosate, which is the active ingredient of Roundup, was the subject of a 49-page study. And I just interviewed one of the co-authors. It's going to be available on our website probably tomorrow, responsibletechnology.org, where glyphosate and Roundup are linked to autism, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, virtually, as they say, every single disease related to a Western diet, anorexia nervosa, anxiety, aggression. It turns out that Roundup, or its active ingredient glyphosate, it disables a couple of very important metabolic pathways, and it disables them in our gut bacteria. So it causes, for example, a problem in producing tryptophan, which is the precursor to serotonin. Serotonin will tell the body, you're full now, stop eating. So if there's not enough serotonin, you may just keep eating. Serotonin is also important for sleep and stress levels, etc., and that may be negatively involved. The whole ability for the cells to pull sugar out of the blood may be compromised because of another aspect.
Let me just stop you for a minute here. Think about this, folks. We've got the highest level of diabetes in the world, highest level of cancer, most obese, IQs are lowering. I mean, that's not just education. We're being poisoned. I mean, it's a cocktail of things, and the power structure knows this. I mean, what do you think they're up to? They just don't care?
Well, they continue to ignore the research. I remember talking to a FDA official who was very high up in GMO evaluations. And I told her two different studies that we were aware of and have been talking about for years. One that showed that genes can transfer into the DNA of gut bacteria and potentially continue to function, which means long after we stop eating GMOs, we may be producing this toxic insecticide or the Roundup Ready gene, and that also that genes may be unstable, because there was evidence showing that the genetic sequence of the same event, but analyzed in two different laboratories, were different, which means it might produce something completely unexpected.
Mutations. Stay there. We got to come right back. Long segment coming up with the GMO expert. Every time I go to a restaurant, every time I sit there and I look at my darling little children and I realize that I'm on the road and I'm being lazy and I just go into some place and just feed them, even if it's a healthy food, I know it's got GMO in it. I know it's got hormones. It is hard to try to keep my children off GMO, but they're probably off of it 90% of the time. And they know as mammals that if they just put something out in the environment, we will just take it and accept it, and we'll muddle through it. They'll use our capacity to adapt and improvise in hard situations to put up with this. I was once on first-class airplane flight going up to be on the View, and there was the president of a major bank. I'll just leave it at that because he figured out who I was at the end. I got pretty upset that he'd been talking to me. And he just said, it doesn't matter what you do. They'll put up with anything. It's their adaptiveness. And the fact that we know they're adaptive, talking about us like we're not even human. And I already knew this, but having this guy, you know, tell me this. You know, I've seen on TV, you know his name. To have him sit there, he was flying down here to see his retired general father who lives in San Antonio. I sat there for 3 hours on the New York flight while this guy, and we talked. And off and on. You know, he had the perfect gray hair, the perfect black trench coat, cashmere, you know, when he got up and put it on. You know, his suit, even though he was on a flight, looked perfect. And he looked like a James Bond type guy. And I told him, I said, doesn't matter how slick you are, you're going to be defeated in the end. He was just like, But what he said repeatedly is the people will muddle through anything. And they use that. They use our own adaptiveness and the fact that we'll put up with so much to not notice the ambient background of all this that's being turned up. And they know full well what they're doing. It's come out that Monsanto, 15 years ago, it came out in the news, and then again 10 years ago, and then again last year, at their own facilities, doesn't eat their own GMO and demands organic. The communist Chinese elite demand their own secret farms. That's come out, and it's been a big scandal. It's the same thing in Europe. The, quote, clean vaccines the German government and British government got. See, I'm not even so much against vaccine technology, folks. I know you can get some immunity from that. It's that you can't trust these companies who have these histories of testing and all this and all the autism and all this. My point is that we have to get conscious of what's happening. It's like if you put a slow kill poison in a pond to kill feral hogs. It's illegal, but people do it because they're out of control in Texas, invasive species. And because they've already eaten all the baby deer, run off the deer, taken the deer's forage. There's no deer they're going to get poisoned, maybe some coyotes. You poison that pond, and the deer will come, and the pigs will come, and they will drink from it. And they don't know why everybody starts dying a week later. And it's the same thing. This is ambient. It builds up. And this is what they talk about in eco-science by the White House science czar is putting stuff in our food and water. The UN's been caught doing it. Now I get into why they're doing it. A lot of it's companies don't care. So the globalists just let other companies that just don't care or do whatever they want. I mean, it's a lot of neglect, not caring. You know, Bayer with the factor rate, millions of ampules filled with HIV and hepatitis, knowing it was a death sentence for a decade, selling it out into the public. And then when it came out in court in Australia and France, the executives are like, well, they're hemophiliacs anyways. They're a drain on society. Let them die. Those are a lot of people love. These people that had lives and were treating their hemophilia and living a good life, and you killed them. And then you're like, let them. You know what? I say you're not human. How would you like being lined up and shot up full of hepatitis, you punks? How would you like that? Stop treating us like we're animals. Excuse me. I'm going back to our guest. Jeffrey Smith. Folks, I have empathy because my instincts are aligned with life, not because I'm some wimp. Real men have empathy, ladies and gentlemen, because what happens to other people is going to happen to us. And I have to go through hell. I have to go through hell to try to keep my kids off this stuff. Then I see other people's kids who look like they're death. You go look how unhealthy people are and how dumb people are and all the weird diseases and isms and things that are happening. And it's all linked to the chemical diet, the bio crap, all of it. I'm sorry, Jeffrey, I'm ranting. This stuff gets to me because I know I'm right. I know you're right. I know the history, and it just doesn't stop. And the arrogance of these people, and there's no way these elitists that are doing this, even though they try to avoid it, there's no way they can avoid it. Isn't the proof of them trying to avoid it through the entire power structure proof that they know?
Well, I talked to a former Monsanto scientist, and he said 3 of his colleagues were testing the milk from cows treated with Monsanto's bovine growth hormone. And they found so much cancer-promoting IGF-1 hormone in the milk that the 3 Monsanto scientists refused to drink milk thereafter unless it was organic. One bought his own cow. Now, it was clear, obvious, that these 3 Monsanto scientists believed that the milk might be creating cancer, refused to feed it to their families, and yet they somehow felt either okay or at least powerless to stop the company that they worked for from marketing it to the rest of the public. Now, you talked about your kids and bringing them out to eat. I want to share a story that happened 3 weeks ago at MIT. I was giving a talk at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology along with Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who I interview, and her interview is going to come out tomorrow at responsibletechnology.org, a fascinating interview about the dangers of glyphosate, or Roundup. And I ask the audience, as I typically do these days, how many of you have avoided GMOs and noticed a change in your health? And a woman shot up her hand and said, I saw your film recently, Genetic Roulette, The Gamble of Our Lives. Now, you have that on your site. It's the most powerful, game-changing video. It changes people's diet on the spot. She saw the film, and a light bulb went off. Her 6.5-year-old boy was desperately aggressive, out of control. They tried to call him retarded. They wanted to take him out of school. She saw other parents in the video describing the improvements of their autistic kids. They saw farmers talking about the improvements in their animals, doctors talking about the improvements in their patients. So she immediately took her child off of all genetically modified foods and said she has a new child now. He's no longer aggressive, no longer being threatened with the term retarded. No one wants to take him out of school. He's completely calm and well organized in his brain. Now, this is one of numerous stories. I've heard thousands of stories of people talking about allergies and asthma and brain fog and lethargy and skin problems and kidney disease, infertility, gastrointestinal disorders, a whole host of problems getting better when they stop eating GMOs. And I've been to the doctor's offices with cameras interviewing the doctors and the patients. Some patients say they got rid of Crohn's disease in 3 days, or irritable bowel in 6 weeks, or
incredible.
4 weeks. And when you look at them, when you look at the individuals removing GMOs from their diet, they may have to buy organic or reduce processed foods. So there's potential cofactors. And I understand, you know what I mean by cofactors. Maybe it's the additives that are being taken out. But when the livestock remove GM soy and replace it only with non-GM soy, or remove GM corn and replace it with non-GM corn, there are no cofactors. It's just that one change. And they get rid of diarrhea in 2 or 3 days. They get rid of birth defects, no more deaths from ulcers. Medicine rates go down dramatically.
I've talked to so many farmers more than a decade ago. I have a lot of family that are farmers. I live around farmers. They say, look, we go on GMO, we start having most of our calves born dead. The baby pigs die. Everything starts dying, and because it has pesticide in it, it has all sorts of other things engineered into it. I want you to get into some of the science here, but again, this is something that the power structure that you just mentioned knows and is aware of. So my question to you is, how much what do you expect to happen with this as the diabetes, the cancer, everything goes up, as more and more studies come out linking it to this? I mean, will we have Nuremberg trials for these GMO companies?
Well, I'm actually doing some deep research into linking GMOs with autism, with allergies, with asthma, with gluten sensitivity, infertility, and gut problems. And I'm working with some of the top professionals and practitioners in these areas to show the link. Now, what's happening, however, is good news, Alex, and that is that as people watch the movie Genetic Roulette, or they go to our website, nongmoshoppingguide.com, or download our free app, Shop No GMO, and learn to avoid GMOs, then it's applying economic pressure to the food companies. So last year in 2012, products that were labeled non-GMO grew in sales by 26%, outpacing all other categories. In fact, when Whole Foods announced it was going to require labeling in 5 years, they told USA Today that when a product becomes third-party verified as non-GMO, sales increase 15 to 30%. Now, we know that the rest of the food companies are listening.
So it's free market, voting with our dollars is the only main weapon we've got.
It's the main weapon we've got, plus the possibility of passing some of these labeling laws in states, which again allows for voting with our dollars by choosing the non-GMO. So yes, we have the power here. We don't want to give up the power and say the FDA will bail us out or the USDA will bail us out. And you know that as well as I do. And in the case of GMOs, the biotech industry has been calling the shots. It was Monsanto's former attorney at the FDA who was in charge of GMO policy, ignored the warnings of the scientists working at the agency and said no testing was necessary.
They own the Supreme Court, everything. It's a total joke.
Absolutely. So, but what they don't own is the ability for you and I to get the information out to those who are health conscious, to parents who want to protect their kids, to those who are sick, to healthcare professionals, to religious people that think GMO means God move over. We're targeting these receptive peoples, receptive, low-hanging, non-GMO fruit, as I call them. So when we start to get about 5% of U.S. shoppers avoiding GM ingredients, that should be a tipping point. And what's happening now is we did a study on the impact of the movie Genetic Roulette, The Gamble of Our Lives, and virtually everyone in the audience, before the credits rolled, were willing to change their diet on the spot and have their loved ones watch the same movie, because when we have doctors speak about GMOs, they speak with far more conviction about the problems than I do, because they get to experiment on their patients. They get to tell their patients, remove GMOs, let's see what happens. And they do it 10 times, 100 times. One woman did it 5,000 times, and she said, it never doesn't work. Everyone gets better, which leads us to believe that GMOs are a major contributor to these wide variety of diseases that are on the rise in the U.S. population since GMOs were introduced. And the same diseases and disorders on the rise are those that individuals are reporting go away when they eliminate GMOs.
Wow, and they know the fluoride's deadly in our water. They know the aspartame's making people go blind and have early onset of neurological disorders. They know the GMO is just devastating. I mean, the studies that are in your books and videos, let's put them up on screen for TV viewers. Folks, you can support the work of Mr. Smith and InfoWars, but more importantly, wake your friends and family up. If you can organize a showing in your neighborhood of Genetic Roulette, the film, and have the book there that's like a textbook that shows all the documents, that will save lives. And look, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I mean, look at McDonald's. When I first heard like 7 years ago on a news report that they had silicone in their McNuggets, I didn't believe it. And then I went and looked it up, and they have loopholes called an additive, and a bunch of other chains do it. I mean, it's not just GMO. It's like plastic in the food. I mean, no wonder there's kidney failure all over the place. It is so insane what they've gotten away with. So go to InfoWarsStore.com, get Genetic Roulette, DVD book special, get a discount, get both of them together. You know, that's why they don't want, under No Child Left Behind, teachers being able to teach where they just hand out packets now. They don't want a teacher sneaking in and showing this. Well, you know what? Break the rules. Go to your principal and say, I need to teach them how to love to learn, you know, not how to be robots. We've got, your churches should be showing Genetic Roulette and also The World According to Monsanto, Seeds of Deception, the case against fluoride, all of it available at InfoWarsStore.com. Now, I've got to say this. We've got all the studies, the science. I want to get into that, other areas, because I don't want to just ask the questions. You're the expert here. But I research this every day so I can verify what you're saying and then a lot more. I know you're holding back because you're a big target here of these people. But you can see the worm turning. It's like, almost like Monsanto was like, you know, Scientologists. People were scared to talk about them, and suddenly they're not. And people were scared to talk about Obama. Now they're not. It's kind of like the dam breaking. But I know so many engineers, scientists, oil company people that I've run into, family, people I know, doctors. One guy puts in silicon factories. And I've talked to him, and they'll say, man, you know what wakes me up about GMO? I probably talked, no exaggeration, more than 20 people have told me this over the years, just anecdotally, separately. They go, you know, I went to Ukraine to you know, help build an oil refinery, or I went to you know, Czech Republic to do this. That was in 2 cases. Or I went to Japan to put this in. And they go, I lost 40 pounds in 3 months. Man, I drank like a fish. I ate like a pig. Those people stay up all night partying. I was saying thing about the Czech Republic, but they're all skinny and healthy. They live longer than us smoking cigarettes. What is the French? I talked to one guy who was doing stuff for me. He goes, man, they smoke cigarettes. They get drunk every night. They party constantly. They sleep 4 hours a night. They look great. Everybody I talk to, men, women, they go to Europe and places that don't have GMO, and they get healthy. What's going on?
We've heard that same thing for many years, and sometimes it's even more specific, Alex. Sometimes people say, I can't have soy in the U.S., but when I have soy in Europe, it doesn't cause a reaction. Same with corn. That's because the tipping point of consumer rejection did kick GMOs out of direct derivatives in Europe, in the 27 countries there. They do have animal feed that's genetically engineered, but they don't have soy lecithin or high fructose corn syrup, etc., that we have here. Likewise, when people say that they can eat the organic varieties but not the GM varieties, this gives us an indication that it is, in fact, the GMO that's causing the problem. Now, the study that came out that you mentioned earlier in September of last year, this was trying to define what's causing the problem. Is it the genetic engineering, or is it the Roundup that gets poured onto these Roundup-ready crops? So they took rats that were eating either genetically engineered corn that was Roundup ready, so it was sprayed with Roundup, or they were just eating Roundup in their water supply, or they were just eating the corn that wasn't treated with Roundup. But in all three cases, Alex, the animals got early death, organ damage, and massive multiple tumors. Up to 80% of the female rats had tumors mostly in the mammary glands. So in this case, we think it's both the Roundup herbicide that's sprayed on the crops, as well as the massive collateral damage that occurs in the DNA as a result of the process of genetic engineering. So it's a double whammy. Then you have this sweet corn that they're selling in Walmart, that's Monsanto sweet corn. It's not only Roundup ready, but it also produces the Bt toxin that we know breaks little holes in human cells, causing leakage. If it causes leaky gut, many scientists link that with autoimmune disease, with allergies, asthma, cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. And
that's why it attacks. That's why it affects behavior. You drink, it affects your brain. Well, you eat a bunch of pesticide garbage, you're going to get irritable. You're going to get aggressive. We'll be right back with our amazing guest, Jeffery Smith. Get the books and videos at InfoWarsStore.com. Battle them with your dollars. Yeah, folks, the film Genetic Roulette was 2012 Movie of the Year, Solari Report, Transformational Film of the Year, Aware Guide. And again, it's available at InfoWarsStore.com. And yeah, you support us getting the word out. You support what he's doing, what we're doing. But I mean, really, it's about waking up, because you need to take this personal. And myself included, every time I do one of these interviews, I think, you know all this, but you still go in a restaurant and don't even ask, is this organic? And by demanding that, it will then create the market, and then it will displace it. Just like you can't even find non-GMO milk now or hormone milk. It's all organic everywhere I go around the country, because people, unless it's a low-income area at a gas station. And that's really the exciting thing. We demand quality. We demand service. We demand transparency. It doesn't matter how many lawyers in government Monsanto has. It doesn't matter how many people they own. And this is just basic self-preservation. And by the way, I've researched it. These are eugenicists, folks. They know exactly what they're doing. It's not just Monsanto. And I look at the rat photos. Type in GMO rat photos if you dare, and look at the studies. And I've had top scientists on countless times. You've heard them, that were like making millions a year as GMO scientists, had patents, were working with these really big companies, and then found out it was sterilizing lab animals and things. And so they would just refuse to be part of it anymore, and then be demonized and attacked, but they've been vindicated. Well, what's the point spending all this money if your grandkids, get cancer? And by the way, Jeffery Smith, you haven't even gotten into what happens by the second and third generation in guinea pigs and rats when they're fed different GMO diets. Tell people about that briefly, and what the studies show the worst linked GMO things are. I mean, is it the pesticide-based BT things?
Well, as far as the multiple generations go, there was a study not yet published, but we did announce the results when the Moscow scientists did report them. And that is, when they fed hamsters genetically modified soybeans, by the third generation, most were sterile. They also died at 4 or 5 times the rate compared to controls that were eating the non-GM soybeans. And many of the hamsters had hair growing in their mouths. Now, hair growing in the mouths is not something that's common at all. It's extremely rare, but they had never...
Well, his Skype broke up.
As they had with the GMO-fed groups.
Sorry, your Skype broke up for a moment. Why are you discriminating against people with hair in their mouths? I mean, maybe that's a gift the government's going to give us.
Well, it's true. You never know. One thing, though, about this time, I'm thinking some of your listeners may want to know how to avoid GMOs. Shall we give them a little primer on that?
Yes.
Okay, there are 9 genetically modified food crops. They are soy, corn, cottonseed oil, canola oil, sugar from sugar beets, alfalfa, which is used as hay for animals. There's zucchini and yellow crookneck squash, not all of it, but some of it, as well as papaya from either Hawaii or China. Now, all of these are found at nongmoshoppingguide.com or in the free download iPhone application Shop No GMO. We also have about 10,000 products listed in the guide that are third-party verified as non-GMO. Here are the 4 ways to avoid GMOs. 1, buy organic, not allowed to intentionally use GMOs. 2, buy products that say non-GMO on the package. 3, buy products listed in our shopping guide. Or 4, avoid the at-risk ingredients. Now, we mentioned 9 GM food crops, but some of these have derivatives like dextrose and maltodextrin, etc. Those derivatives are also listed on the guide, and you can find, even in the processed food sections in major supermarkets, products that don't have these derivatives from GMOs.
All right, we're out of time. We got to talk to you again soon. I'm going to do some overdrive to take calls. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. We'll talk to you soon. By the way, big breaking news at Infowars.com right now on IRS Gate and more. Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, saying this is only the beginning. A lot more is about to come out on IRS Gate, Spying Gate, Benghazi Gate, everything else. Report IRS targeted news anchor after Obama interview. The guy asked mild questions of Obama, and his family said the IRS is going to come after you. That's how well known it is, and they did. Special unit went after pro-Israel Jewish groups. That's bizarre. Agency won't say if it will comply with the congressional demand for all the documents. People were aware of conservatives being targeted but didn't do anything. That's the White House. Yeah, the media is all a bunch of crooks, man. They love it. Top IRS official, mistakes were made. Guilty of lack of sensitivity. Knew of Tea Party targeting for years, but didn't reveal. And AP is angry and in disbelief. I mean, you guys play ball with the New World Order. You know who you work for. And there's our article right there on DrudgeReport.com. Rand Paul, Obama drunk on power. Maybe they'll attack him for saying that. That's just some of what's up on DrudgeReport.com. And then we've got all the stuff up on Infowars.com. It's all just out of control. But let's get to some of your phone calls as promised. Let's talk to Joshua. Says he's 19 years old, concerned with the youth of America. I'm concerned with everybody, my friend. We're all in trouble. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm talking about the youth. Some of us were actually gamers, and it's actually one of my hobbies. I'm disabled, 19, not able to work, actually. And a lot of the people that are plugged in that just play Call of Duty all day, they're actually a joke to some of the more serious gamers because, you know, they don't really expand their horizons with other games and whatnot. But I want to thank you for, you know, you're the one reason why I'm awake. 5 years ago, I started listening to your show. You woke me up. When I tell people about your show and stuff you talk about, you know, GMOs, for instance, they think that I'm crazy. They look at me with this glazed over look in their eyes, and it really makes me sad. But the people of my generation, they are asleep. They're on their phones all the time. They don't really want to pay attention to what's going on around them.
They're not living. They're not living. They're sleeping, plugged into the fake world of mainstream media. And it's time for all of us to pull back more and more, and at least one day a week, so biblical, unplugged from everything. And our children, it's rewiring their brains early in a bad way. We need to keep kids off the computers as much as possible.
And when people are on the computers, they have the information at their fingertips. They have an entire, you know, world of information at their fingertips. But do they use it?
Well, that's another thing. Exactly. The internet could be used for good. I think we're one of the good influences there. There's many others. But yeah, I use it to try to learn things, check things, find things out, share things. But if the mainstream culture is designed to dumb us down and make us weak so we can be conquered. I mean, that's on record. And so all I can say is children don't know how to discern and discriminate, so we need to basically keep them off the internet as much as possible. I mean, parents, you can't just turn your kids over to the government and the globalist media. God bless you, Joshua. I appreciate your call and joining us today. I'm out of time. Ernest, Anthony, Shelley, if you want to give us your numbers, we'll call you back tomorrow and get you on. I'll actually do that. Most hosts don't do that, but I apologize. I feel terrible every day when I sit there and say I'll take calls and don't get to as many as I like. I did an okay job today. We probably took 15 calls. When I was first on talk radio, I could take 60 calls in an hour. Because I was like into taking the calls, and I would just take them and take them and take them. And now it's the opposite. I don't know why I do that. I think it's almost a subconscious thing. It's like being interrogated. I don't know what you're going to come up with, and I'll have to think about it. And so it's almost like I don't cover these big stacks of news I've already looked at, because it's like, New World Order. I've got to cut. It's almost like I don't want to face all this stuff. You know what I mean? That's why I don't blame you out there for wanting to stick your head in the sand sometimes. But that won't save us. We've got to stand up against these globalists. And we'll cover it all tonight, 7 o'clock Central, InfoWars Nightly News. Get a membership at prisonplanet.tv. Baby swimming in toilets. If he would have, done it in a professional manner, it's like, oh, we torture, but it's professional. Oh, we spy on you, but it's done by professionals. I always notice they go, it's very professional. At Abu Ghraib, raping with children in front of their parents. It's very professional. I've said if Hitler wore a pink uniform, we probably never would have, even when he declared war on us, fought back. As long as you act non-threatening like Google and Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett and all these crooks, they are crooks. Getting $44 billion of bailout money after you give political money to the people that make the decision at the Treasury to then give $44 billion to you, it's hundreds of billions now, that's criminal. Google breaking into everybody's computers, hacking past with government back doors they were given to steal your passcodes and everything and spying on you. They've been convicted of that, but were given a slap on the wrist. That's criminal. But see, they don't, in the old days, people liked somebody dressed up in a black uniform, acting tough. That was seen as a strong leader. So people like Hitler and Mao and Stalin would stomp around and say, I'm coming to kill you. And that would kind of scare and awe their minions, because they would see projected power through the leader. But nowadays, they're more sophisticated. They walk around with a metrosexual lisp and all of this. That's a complete cover, ladies and gentlemen. Because they can get everything as long as they go, I'm liberal, I'm a Peace Prize winner. We have video up on Infowars.com of a Syrian rebel group cutting a guy's heart out and eating it. And these are the groups, but even in the British news, the public is now outraged, the BBC reports, over the fact that, quote, the West is funding al-Qaeda. See, that's another reason Obama's in so much trouble. They've got to burn somebody for this. This is a larger global policy to create radical jihadis, to fund radical Muslims, and then to allow them to attack or to provocateur them into attacks. And this is all on record. So see, that realization is now coming to the forefront of people's minds, and there's a total loss of credibility. It is your prisonplanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation, and then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, the son of Watergate, chilling like a villain, Barack Hussein Obama is melting down, as I said, we were seeing last week. And yes, he's a globalist puppet, but all the hopes and dreams to sell tyranny and to sell war and torture and secret spying and political persecution as trendy is now falling on its face. When you see the establishment turn against somebody, It's because they realize he can't sell their agenda anymore, and they're losing massive credibility because of him. But all I could say is, too late. You're not going to put a Republican puppet in there either and have us go back to sleep. That's why, despite the mainstream media demonizing him, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, people like that are so incredibly popular now across the political spectrum, is because people want constitutionalists. They want people that support the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, due process. People hunger for checks and balances. And the fact that now it's come out in AP, Reuters, Washington Post, what we told you years ago, it came out years ago, that they were targeting and auditing and harassing Tea Party people. We have an article up on Infowars.com dealing with that, how it was a conspiracy, leaked documents, IRS targeting conservatives in what media called conspiracy. And we have links to our articles and other articles from 3 years ago and 2 years ago saying exactly what is now being reported. In fact, they're now linking in the media to make announcements. They have been caught across the board lying, and they've lost the people's confidence. Now, if Obama just gets a political spanking and this becomes a political diversion, it's a big loss for liberty. But you can smell that kind of visceral, electric, ozone stench of fear and running, trampling from the establishment. They are scared across the board because globally the currencies are melting down. We've been in a depression for 5 years in most sectors of the economy by every old-fashioned benchmark. They're cooking the modern numbers. Government is giving itself red carpet treatment, $1 million a day for Obama to go on vacation, $500,000 a day for Biden. But it's not just here in the U.S. People are angry about this in England. They're angry about it all over the U.K. They're angry about it in Israel. They're angry about it in Europe. They're angry about it in Russia. People are sick of it. And they now see through the fancy ties and the sports jackets and the Air Force Ones and the Hollywoodization of everything. People are really getting nauseous from the intoxication of lies, and they're ready to hug the toilet and get the poison out of them. Now, the question is, will we be able to get to that point? I certainly hope so. So let me do this. Let me go over the headlines here. And then I'm going to give the phone number out. And I really do want to take calls this hour and the next hour. Then we're going to have top researcher on Monsanto and GMO to cover that big fight, Jeffery Smith, covering some of the Supreme Court rulings and things that have been coming down the last few days, and the march on Monsanto nationwide coming up. We're going to have him pop in for about 30, 40 minutes at the start of the third hour. We've also got Dr. Kermit Gosnell found guilty of murdering infants in late-term abortions. We're going to be giving you the details on those counts. And they said what pushed the jury over the edge was the filthiness of the grimy clinic. That's a quote, the filthy, grimy clinic. So it would have been okay if it was all glistening white and clean, and if he hadn't made jokes about babies and killing them and how much he enjoyed it. And there wouldn't have been all the witnesses about them, of May 2013. And we're going to be live here, Lord willing, for the next 3 hours. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's what I want to do. I'm going to really try to control myself, which you know I won't. I'm going to try to hit the unraveling of the Obama administration, the Bozo administration, drunk on power, as Senator Rand Paul has said. You can watch that video up at drudgereport.com. They have a link to it right there in the middle column. We're going to be playing some of that audio for radio listeners here in the next segment. But I want to give the phone number out today specifically, again, for first-time callers. That means real first-time callers that have never had a chance to get through, to give us your take on why you think the bottom is falling out on Obama, why you think the establishment is turning against him, and how far you think this will go. I think most of it, in fact, I know most of that, depends on what we politically do. And it is very healthy. It shows that these people are not above the law. It is what is constitutional that Obama be indicted in the House and convicted in the Senate. And quite frankly, he shouldn't sail off into the sunset like Nixon, who said, I'm not a crook. I don't know anything about Watergate, the hotel, the break-in. And, well, now we're seeing the same thing out of Obama. I didn't know about Benghazi. I didn't know about the IRS spying on people and harassing them. I didn't know about the AP and other media being spied on. You didn't know? It's on record that Obama has had, I've seen numbers of 15 times, 20 times, no one knows, the prosecution of whistleblowers at the federal level for reporting on corruption to the media. There are scores of people serving prison sentences. We've had corrupt presidents before. We've had a corrupt establishment, but we've never had a persecution of the lapdog media like we're now seeing. And so there's a lot of things happening, but I think the over-the-topness of the corruption of the reporters having to submit their questions before press conferences, not just for presidential press conferences, but for federal press conferences across the board, the scripting of everything, the fraud, the arrogance, the White House saying we may just stop having press conferences and we'll maybe have a hologram president literally come out in older articles where it had actually been mentioned. It's kind of like Fast and Furious, where Big Sis and Holder and all these people at the Criminal and Justice Department, they, if you remember, came out like 6 months into office and said, we need to get the guns because of crime in Mexico, and we've got an Operation Gun Runner tracking the guns. And then later they're like, we've never heard of Gun Runner. We've never heard of Fast and Furious. Why? It's not true. We didn't know. We didn't mean. And then, of course, the memos came out that were planning to use it to blame the Second Amendment. This stuff is all hiding in plain view. So why now is everybody from Jon Stewart to John McCain, all these establishment people, why are they now turning on the precious and darling little Obama? Because they want to blame the failure in Syria on him. They want to blame the failure to get Obamacare properly implemented on him. It was never designed to be implemented. It's designed to rob people and make Berkshire Hathaway stock increase in value because it makes you buy insurance from them. Their whole system is really waking people up. So they hope that they can just destroy Obama now, if not actually indict him in the House, convict him in the Senate, impeachment. They're hoping that if they destroy him politically, that will satisfy people, like throwing someone into the mob to be torn apart, or throwing someone to the wolves that are tracking you through the woods, giving the dog a bone. Now, let's be clear here. I am very excited about Obama being brought to justice. I'm very excited. I'd like to see them all go to jail. And I think it's important to punish corrupt politicians. But I don't want to settle with the Republicans who are scared of too deep an investigation, breaking through compartments into their corruption. I'm concerned they'll try to just make Hillary step down in some type of public censure of Obama. We need more than that. And we can crowbar into this space and bust the New World Order wide open. If we seize on something like this, it could be their Waterloo. Coming to you live from the InfoWars News Center in Austin, Texas, radiating out across the entire globe. It is Tuesday, the 14th day